Howdy, folks. Welcome to your Friday episode. This is So Bad It's Good, and this is your pal, Ryan. How the heck are you guys doing? We're doing a Real Housewives of Orange County Season 19 Reunion Part 3 recap, which we'll talk about some of the themes in Part 2, since we didn't do that recap since I was at BravoCon last week. But right at the top, I do want to say, thank you, dear Lord, for getting us through the season, 'cause it was horrible, and it didn't know what it was trying to be. Everybody was pretty bad on this season. It sucked big donkey balls. It should come as no surprise to you that I really dislike this season for so many reasons. Now, I'll just jump right into it. By the way, we're going to talk about a couple of other Bravo stories that I didn't get to cover yesterday, including Dr. Wendy and Eddie. It turns out there might be some more alleged financial crimes. My God. This season, it's like each of these women individually, I can make a case for knowing exactly why they're there. Together, they don't form the Avengers. They form the opposite of the Avengers. There is no strength in numbers with Real Housewives of Orange County. And I think you have, disgusting allegations about Gretchen, which, she swears up and down that she did not do, and we'll talk more about that. And you have disgusting behavior by Tamra. And Tamra goes so hard in the paint when she doesn't have to. I mean, for somebody that's been on reality TV this long and has made such a successful career at it, she still fights like it's her first season. And I hope for Tamra one day to almost kind of not rest on her laurels, but realize she doesn't have to go that hard, because when she goes that hard, it feels performative. It feels like somebody that is probably not the actual Tamra. I could be wrong. Maybe that is Tamra in real life, but it comes off like a character, and a character that you don't want to see. But I will say, in terms of, and we've talked about this all the time when I say that shows like Orange County, it turns it into a game of Survivor, a game of traitors, which Heather Dubrow literally says in this third part, which I don't think Heather listens to this show at all, but it's truly how I felt for years, is that, certain Housewives franchises has turned into more of a game of, can you survive? Who are we getting out this week? Instead of just a group of female friends that come together, that there's some lunacy, there's some craziness, and yes, there's some fighting, but overall, there's conflict resolution. And with this cast, you don't care about the conflict, and therefore you don't care about the resolution. I mean, even the little storylines they had going with, did Tamra leak things to a blogger, the Katie Ginella, the Gretchen, these are all storylines with a better cast that you would potentially be riveted, but you are really bored with. And I don't mean to sound pithy, but you get bored. You're like, oh God, make it stop. With the Salt Lake ladies or the Potomac ladies, when they have these conflicts, you're riveted in a sense. And on top of it, they're each unique characters that are hysterical in their own ways. I don't know if I would consider any of these ladies hysterical in the way that they move at this point, because this show has gone on for so long. And so even this week, which wasn't the most solid episode of Salt Lake for this season, I think it was the least solid episode, you could still make a case that there was a lot of entertainment out of it. With this, I mean, it's bad when Andy looks bored, when he's just like, I don't know, you know what? I don't, it's Tamra, it's fine. It's Gretchen, it's fine. He seemed checked out at a certain point, just like the audience was checked out. And the only reason I'm critiquing it this hard is because I believe in the franchise overall. Listen, Orange County is going nowhere. You are going to have a 20th season. They just offered Vicki back her orange, but that does not save us from anything. Just because you give Vicki Gunvalson back her orange doesn't save this show. Because I'm assuming if Vicki comes back, that means Tamra comes back, which means Shannon comes back, because you're going to lean into the Trace Amigas at some point. And yes, hopefully that happens and it'll be a fun episode. But the overall behavior of Tamra this season is no bueno. No bueno. You can't get something, and anytime Tamra is called out for something, it is just, it is the most unartful, unentertaining way of of dealing with any sort of drama. And I don't know. So I'm really worried about where do you go from here? Like the 20th season, if you lean into the nostalgia, it should be, it's like we'll get through it. But like I said, about halfway through this season, they're going to need to not maybe do a full reboot, but they got to make some big casting changes. And I hate saying that because it's really, I legitimately am not trying to come down on any of these ladies and say, oh my God, they just suck. I mean, I might have said that a couple of years ago, but I'm kinder, I'm gentler, I'm softer. But it just doesn't work. It's not entertaining. And I know some of you might be out there going, oh, that's really entertaining. I mean, God bless you. If I wish I could think more like you, but I can't. And on top of it, there's some really disgusting behavior and topics being talked about that I think makes you face the reality of the certain situations in the world. But what's sad is that we're not having honest conversations about those situations. Like if we are liking certain posts, if we do feel a certain way, let's talk about it. Like I will say, Heather Dubrow to me is the MVP of this season. But it is a very bad season. It is like, yeah, if you want to give an MVP, there you go. Like Heather, I agree with Heather more this season than I have any other season. And I do appreciate how hard she rides for her family. I really did appreciate Heather's storylines this season. And there were a lot of did you notice that? They showed us a lot of like stuff that got edited out or stuff that wasn't part of main scenes that we didn't see before. And I have to tell you, those small moments were more exciting than the overall moments that we did see this season. So we'll get to those. Anyways, how are you guys? I just ranted for like 7 minutes. Are you good? It's raining in LA. Very moody, very atmospheric here. Tomorrow is Friday, of course. Now, Saturday, we didn't release an episode on Monday, so we're going to do something a little different. We're going to release Southern Charm, Bapa Doo, Bapa Dee Dee Dee. We'll be doing a recap of that. That'll be coming out on Saturday, so we can talk about those Craig and Shep and Austin and those goofballs. They're trying to sleep with all the women of Charleston still, even though they're in their 60s. Good stuff. But I'm happy you're here. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope, thank you for letting me be a part of it, okay? Today is like around noon, I think was the first time I started to feel like myself again after recovering from BravoCon. Like that stuff is no joke. My body is still kind of screaming at me. And it's just so weird to think about a week ago. I mean, it's Thursday night right now. Last week, I was at like Margaret Joseph's soiree party with like Ronnie and Ben and Danny and two judgy girls and a bunch of Bravo celebrities and it was just magical. And it was a start of a great, great weekend. But here we are. We're back. This next week is Thanksgiving. My dad comes into town. Bill Bailey is going to be here for like a week. Yeah, my dad is coming town for a week, and I'm trying to find fun things to do with him. I think I might take him to the podcast studio one day to watch me do an interview. And I'm trying to, if you know ways to entertain my dad, please reach out to us. Oh, also, this weekend, I guess the Wicked for Good came out. Are you going to go see it? Maritza already saw it today, and she said she really liked it. I think it's like 3 hours long. I asked Rebecca if she wanted to see it, and she was like, nope. So I'll try to see it soon. Let's get into some news stories. This has happened yesterday. The People magazine headline says, Real Housewives of Potomac alum Mia Thornton arrested at Atlanta airport, allegedly stole $11,000 worth of furniture from rented condo. And so she was arrested at the Atlanta International Airport, and there is the arrest footage and her going into her holding cell. And it's really kind of sad just because they kind of walk her through the airport and, in cuffs and then put her in the holding cell. And police said Thornton was taken into custody because she had an active warrant related to a larceny involving an alleged furniture theft. So the police report says that the property management company called police on behalf of their client, who is the owner of the condo unit rented out to Thornton after furniture was allegedly removed from the property in the middle of the night on October 28th. Thornton's former landlord claimed that the tenants also took all of the furniture which was in the unit prior to their move-in, as well as the TV, which was on the wall. So that is wild. So the property was worth $11,000, but what would possess you to do this? What is going on in Potomac? We got Karen Huger, who has been released. We got Dr. Wendy and Eddie, which we'll talk about in a second. And now we have Mia, who ended her run on Potomac last season. And, I think she has yet to put out some sort of Instagram post or statement. But this is just really disheartening. Like, is it worth going to jail for $11,000? You're going to have to pay so much more in legal fees and restitution or whatever it may be. But like, come on, a TV off a wall? You can get a TV. Come on. What are we doing? Let's use our heads. Like, my God. But it just goes to show is that I feel like some of our housewives and, maybe us as a society, we do tend to try to live beyond our means. And it's all about this kind of status that we're trying to show people instead of, I don't know, doing the inner work. Oh my God, I just made myself puke doing the inner work. What is wrong with me? So this is really, I was very dismayed to read this. And remember, she has kids. I mean, there is no reason for this. So I'm curious to hear what she has to say about all this. Now, moving on over to Potomac. Listen, we don't even need Real Housewives of Potomac. We can just do a true crime show, a true crime series, and we just focus on a different Potomac member each week. This says Real Housewives of Potomac's Wendy Osefo and husband Eddie allegedly have 40 credit cards under their names and aliases amid fraud charge. 40 credit cards. How many credit cards do you guys have? I think I have like 4 or 5. Oh my God, I've told you that story. The first credit card I ever got was a Sears card, and I got it on the ASU campus, and I thought it was magic money. And I had a $300 credit limit, and I went and bought a stereo. Like, I didn't even know they sold stereos at Sears. I bought a stereo immediately. I maxed that $300 out that day, I think. And then I was just like, I didn't pay it. I ruined my credit so bad when I was in college. I didn't even know what credit was. And it took me a long time, and now I have really, really good credit. But man, you're just like, hey, okay, cool, Sears card, amazing. So I get, but that was just one credit card. They have 40 credit cards. So this article says more information has come to light following the arrest. The couple was arrested and booked on fraud charges in Maryland October 9th. But the Baltimore Banner reported on November 20th that prosecutors involved in the case have requested additional financial records as they argued that the pair have approximately 40 credit and or debit cards, some of which are believed to be in company names, and some are under the aliases of, these are the alias names, you guys, Pam Oliver and Eddie Hennessy. Eddie Hennessy. That's like if I had one like Ryan Bud Light. Like what? Eddie Hennessy. Eddie Hennessy. Like, thank God this came out after BravoCon, because us hooligans would have went up to like, what up, Eddie Hennessy? What up? And I will say, man, I saw Dr. Wendy and Eddie many times at BravoCon, and they had their heads held up high. Happy Eddie did look happy. He was wearing sunglasses indoors every time I saw him, and it did not look like they had a care in the world. And listen, I know they're trying to save face, but I wouldn't have been able to tell. They looked very glamorous. I mean, Dr. Wendy looked beautiful. Anyways, this says the prosecution claimed that the aliases and company names were a deliberate attempt to mask their identity. No, it wasn't their attempt to like try to be cool. Of course it was to mask their identity. The couple's attorney claimed that the prosecutors are on a fishing expedition, the outlet reported. In court documents viewed by the Baltimore Banner, the prosecution wrote, the state expects such documentation to show a pattern of excessive spending supporting motive in this case. So the motive would be to do insurance fraud, right? The state avers that an insurance fraud is a financial crime, and in that the amount of debt owed by the Osefos jointly, individually, and by the businesses that they own is highly relevant to their motive. In response, Eddie's attorney, Joseph Murtha, claimed that the prosecution is looking for something they haven't figured out after 18 months of investigation. The couple are next due in court on December 2nd. Hours after the news report was published, Wendy and Eddie shared a post featuring a joint statement from their legal team that said, at the outset, police failed to properly investigate the initial burglary. Remember, they claimed their house was burglarized while they were on vacation. Hair loss isn't just about hair. It's about how you feel when you look in the mirror. Hims helps you take back that confidence with access to simple, personalized care that fits your life. Hims offers convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chews, oral medications, serums, and sprays. Doctor-trusted, clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil can stop further hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. No hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. Think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self with a simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for real health concerns all in one place. For simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/sobad. That's hims.com/sobad for your free online visit. hims.com/sobad. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Despite clear indications of a break-in, displaying clear bias against the Asefo family. See, this is what I'm curious about because I read those initial court documents. I'm sure you might have as well. And clear indications of a break-in. In the court documents, they said they had an actual a camera inside the house that showed no movement. The camera did not go off. So I'm wondering what the clear signs of a break-in was. The statement continues, the Asefos heard nothing but silence from police for over 18 months despite complete cooperation and requests for updates. It is common knowledge that other Real Housewives cast members have also been victimized after documenting their travel on social media. And that is true. Remember, just this week alone, we had break-ins at Sutton Strack's house and Kathy Hilton's house while BravoCon was happening. Now, Rick Hilton was there when this was happening, when the burglars were there. But we do know with Sutton that they got a lot of her fine jewelry and all of her designer purses. They made off with a lot of money. And I think they came in through her kitchen window, if I'm not mistaken. So that is true. Other housewives have been victimized. But it says, yet none face this level of scrutiny or criminal charges. We believe it is deeply unjust for the Sheriff's Office and Office of the State Attorneys for Carroll County to publicly expose confidential financial information about Eddie and Wendy Asefo. What is most disturbing is that the state appears to have begun investigating only after charging the Asefos, which is highlight irregular. I think that means they're meaning to say highly irregular, but they said highlight, which is highly irregular approach that raises serious concerns about motive and fairness. The public release of the family's private financial details serves no lawful purpose and only invites conclusory opinions about a case that the state is obviously still investigating. The Asefos have never used an alias on any financial application. I really hope this is true, man, because if this allegation is false and misleading. Such names were used for the delivery of packages, they're saying, following their lawful purchase to safeguard the identity of very public figures. Eddie Hennessy, okay. It is ironic for the state to assert or exaggerate the existence of any purported debt in connection with this accomplished professional couple. Due process is paramount to the administration of justice, and its breach by misleading the public with a false narrative has only compounded the harm. The defense is confident the court will prevent any further violation of the Asefos' right to a fair trial. So this is a lot, you guys. Now, listen, innocent until proven guilty. But just, I'm not a lawyer. I mean, everything that has come out, and obviously this is on the police's and the Carroll County side, it looks really damning. I'm really interested. I mean, I read those initial police reports. It seemed pretty cut and dry what was done. So I'm really curious to hear what their argument is. And so far, we've gotten one argument just saying that it was that the arrest was an illegal arrest, but nothing that would be like, oh, this makes sense. It was just like the way that the police went about it was wrong. And so I don't know. Like, listen, I want to believe Dr. Wendy and Eddie so bad. Don't you want to believe people? I think that speaks to a lot of people's kind of goodness, is that we don't expect just everybody to go around lying and cheating and gaming the system. But maybe we should. Maybe we should just go around thinking everybody's gaming the system. And, we'll find out. But this just happened today. What do you guys think about this? Where do you stand on this? Dr. Wendy has always been a really a housewife that I have loved. And I love their family. I think Eddie's pretty funny. But this is really dark stuff. So December 2nd is when we should find out more information. But I really do. And police have made mistakes, right? But I believe in this kind of situation, and especially when you are dealing with a public figure, and one that Dr. Wendy has already been critical of, I don't think they would put out things that they are completely mistaken on. So I'm very interested to hear their actual arguments at this point. In Salt Lake City news, this made me laugh. I hope this makes you laugh. We did the Salt Lake City recap yesterday, and at the very end of the episode, Lisa Barlow, at Mary's church, everybody was like, "Yeah, I feel the spirit. Woo, woo, I feel the spirit." And then Lisa Barlow has a talking head where she's talking about like accepting everybody, and then she's like, "Except for the Church of Satan, but we even donate tequila to them. We're cool with everybody." It was that kind of vibe. And then this account, Real Housewives Ranked, wrote this on Twitter, and it says, "Why does this track though?" And it had Lisa with that clip. And then the verified account for the Church of Satan, I shit you not, the Church of Satan verified account wrote, "We've never asked for tequila donation. We've never asked for tequila donations." It is really troubling when the Church of Satan tries to distance themselves from you. The Church of Satan's like, "You know what? We don't really want to be involved. We don't want to play in that sandbox. You know what? We're more of a vodka group. We're more of a hard seltzer. We love Loverboy over here at the Church of Satan. We're big into the Spritz Society over here at the Church of Satan." But like the Church of Satan literally said, "We've never asked for tequila donations." Poor Lisa Barlow cannot. The Church of Satan has their foot on Lisa Barlow's neck. That is so brutal. I told you guys the other night that Portia Williams from Real Housewives of Atlanta, coming back from BravoCon, she was exited a Delta Airlines flight in Las Vegas with law enforcement. Now, her lawyer, Joe Habachi, tells People in a statement that the star was verbally assaulted by an irate and unhinged passenger without provocation, adding that Williams is cooperating with law enforcement to whatever extent necessary and remains confident that the passenger will be charged. And I told you, somebody reached out to me that their friend was on this plane and said, is that this lady was pulling a Karen potentially. Now, I did find this lady's statement. They had her on video. I found it on TikTok. Maybe you've seen it as well. And it is an older lady, but I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say like Gloria Stewart and Titanic old. But she was saying, this was her story, was that they were sitting there, and I think first class, and allegedly, Portia had her phone out on Instagram, and it was blaring music. And then it like scared the lady. And then she flipped back it, and it kept blaring music. And I think the lady said, "Are you going to be doing that the whole flight?" And I think that allegedly set Portia off. And then Portia pointed her finger at the lady's face, and she said the nail came really close to her eye, which, by the way, I'm sure Portia's nails are a good foot long. So maybe Portia didn't think, I mean, who knows? But this lady was saying then Portia became verbally aggressive with her and then threw the lady's phone on the ground. So this is the lady's story, but no charges have been made in this, but wanted to give you both sides on that case. This is another bummer of a story. Real Housewives of Orange County former star Meghan King Edmonds, or Meghan King, loses custody of kids to ex Jim Edmonds after Child Protective Service call. This is from Us Weekly. It said she recently lost custody of her 3 kids following an investigation by Child Protective Services. Multiple sources tell us that the decision to strip King of physical custody was made in the past couple of months. The former Bravo star was granted supervised visitation while Edmonds has sole physical custody. Per the source, the decision is temporary and a hearing will be held on whether the custody arrangement will become permanent. The source told us that a school employee called Child Protective Services about King, leading to an investigation. So, as Us First reported, King had the cops called on her on May 1st after an incident at Edmonds' home with his current wife, Courtney Edmonds, who he married in 2022. A report written by the police detailed the drama. Kourtney was listed as the victim and King was named as the subject. Per the paperwork, Kourtney initially requested that charges be brought against King. The drama started when King arrived at Jim and Kourtney's home to drop off a dress for her daughter. Meghan claims she spoke to Jim about the dress before arriving. An officer wrote in the report about Kourtney's version of things, quote, Meghan refused to hand Kourtney the dress and pulled away and asked to speak to her daughter. Kourtney told Meghan that her daughter wasn't home and she was at a baseball game with Jim. As Kourtney walked back towards her office, she heard Meghan inside the home yelling for her daughter. Kourtney walked back to the front door and observed Meghan standing inside the house approximately 5 feet from the doorway. Kourtney said she told Meghan to get out of the home. She claimed King slowly walked back out of the home but wedged her foot in the door briefly so she could not shut the door completely. After Meghan moved her foot, Kourtney closed the door. King was not arrested or detained. But then I also saw something today was that the call, like this was part of one of the kids' schools, is that Meghan had the school's nurse administer medicine to the daughter without the permission of Jim Edmonds. That is something I read. So that is alleged. I don't have that as fact, but it's something I read today, which is something else that happened about this. But you don't want to hear about anybody losing their kids. I mean, it's just, I don't know, but it is one of those interesting things. I know so many dramatic things happen to our in our own lives, but I wonder what the ratio is of really just horrendous things happening to like housewives or reality stars. I wonder just if that ups the percentage, like what the percentage is. It seems to happen more to people on reality stars because you kind of assume they're almost so used to drama. I don't know. I keep thinking about Vicki coming back to OC, and I said that the other day. I was like, I bet they check in on Brooks Ayers. It's like, Vicki, be careful what you wish for, man. Just because you got your orange back, it's not all sunshine and roses. We see that this season of OC was miserable. There was so much toxicity, and you are trying to uncover like everybody's past and like bring up like things that have haunted these ladies from the past. And sometimes it's just like, man, get as far away as you can sometimes, right? And today, the Daily Mail had new paparazzi photos of Jen Shah. That's right, you heard that correctly. Jen Shah paparazzi photos at her Texas federal prison camp. It's not called federal prison where she's at, federal prison camp. And they had her outside taking out the trash. So we got photos of her, and she's in the same prison as Elizabeth Holmes, who was behind that fraud Theranos. I'm Elizabeth Holmes. I have a very deep voice like Countess Luann. And we had paparazzi photos of Elizabeth Holmes with her daughter. And I mean, it kind of looks like beautiful grass. I mean, this is a minimum security prison. They're not in cells in this. But I always find that it's interesting because that means money exchanged hands for these photos. But you also know who else is in that prison, Ghislaine Maxwell of Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to this. She was in a maximum security prison. She got moved to this prison camp a couple of months ago per Trump, and which is wild. And she even now has a service animal. Ghislaine Maxwell has a service animal. She's getting like top tier treatment, and that's the reality show I want to see, man. Fuck OC. I want the real housewives of this Texas prison camp. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jen Shah, and Elizabeth Holmes. Are you kidding me? What are they talking? What are they cooking up behind bars? This article points out that, remember, Jen Shah was originally supposed to be released in 2029. 2029, and then she's had her sentence shortened multiple times. It was bumped up to August 2028, then to December 2027, and most recently to November 3rd, 2026. Jen Shah will be out of prison in less than a year, and I don't know if she can actually even get more time shaved off that. Now, on the flip side, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, he got time added on to his sentence because he was caught making an illegal three-way call. This guy loves three-ways. But I guess you're only supposed to have like one-on-one conversations in jail. And I guess they try to bypass that and have three people on the call. And so now he's had multiple infractions and they've added time to Diddy's sentence. But Jen Shah, they keep shaving time off. So listen, I think, I was reading that article to you guys yesterday from Variety, and like I said, never say never to Jen Shah. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It will happen, and I would imagine not next season, but the season after. And I don't think a full-time housewife, but I do believe she will be making appearances. I mean, even at BravoCon, Angie Katzenevas was asked, who would you rather have back, Monica Garcia or Jen Shah? And Angie Katzenevas was like, Jen Shah. Like, that's how bad they all think Monica Garcia is. Like, Jen Shah bilked the elderly out of millions of dollars. Jen Shah still does have to make a $6.5 million restitution. So, anywho, that's something to think about over the weekend. Also, if there are any housewives listening to this or watching this program right now, I just beg, just chill out this weekend. We're getting close to the holidays. Let's just not do anything stupid. Let's really think about every move, because the police are ready to get you. If you are a housewife or a reality star, they're ready, man. You are easy pickings at this time. So just be cool this weekend. Maybe just stay inside. Watch a movie. There's so much good TV. I got so much TV to catch up on. So let's just do that. How about that, okay? Let's get into Real Housewives of Orange County. Okay, so we'll go really quickly through some of the big beats of the second reunion, which we didn't get to, but it was pretty much, this was Katie's big moment, Katie Ginella's big moment, right? And I got to tell you, I was kind of really excited to see how she was going to defend herself, how she was going to explain things. And I feel like this was another thing where it got y'all like, okay, and then nothing. The crowd goes mild. I really don't feel like we got any answers. Katie's sticking to her story, and Jenn Pedranti and Gretchen are sticking to hers. And so the only thing that I can point to where I'm like, okay, the thing that really bothers me is the Kiki Monique of it all. Because listen, Kiki wouldn't lie about this. I'm sorry. That's where I do know Kiki, and she wouldn't lie about this, is that Katie told Kiki about the naked wasted. So if we're supposed to believe that Katie is not like, I do believe there is a world in which this was said to Katie at this Mastro's dinner with Gretchen. That would make sense to me. But then what doesn't make sense to me is that then Katie wouldn't say this to Kiki, and so Kiki pulled this out of thin air, or Kiki, this was something to do with Sheena, or it just got so convoluted and messy. And I was kind of hoping that I'm at BravoCon right now, and I got clothing from Quince with me. I have this beautiful black top. I've got this amazing jacket. Quince came through once again. Now, we're in that kind of season of cold mornings, holiday plans, and this is when you kind of want your wardrobe just to be simple. Stuff that looks sharp, feels good, and things that you will actually wear. For me, that's Quince. And the bonus, Quince pieces make great gifts too. This season's lineup is simple but smart and easy with Quince. $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters that feel like an everyday luxury, and wool coats that are equal parts stylish and durable. Their denim nails the fit and everyday comfort, all at a fraction of what you'd expect to pay. By partnering directly with ethical factories and top artisans, Quince cuts out the middlemen to deliver premium quality at half the cost of other high-end brands. So you can give the luxury quality pieces without the luxury price tag. Give and get timeless holiday staples that last this season with Quince. Go to quince.com/sobad for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/sobad. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/sobad. Would actually at least come out and say, where I did mess up was that I actually did lie and I did tell Kiki about this, because that was told to me. And I felt like she hung Kiki out to dry, and I feel like there's still been no clarification. Now, Kiki and Katie were both at BravoCon, and I was around Kiki a bunch, and I didn't really get to ask I should have asked, but I didn't get to ask if she had bumped into Katie, if there was any resolution. But I was kind of expecting to hear a little bit more about that. And so this is where it was unsatisfying. The second part was boring and unsatisfying, and the third part was just kind of toxic and unsatisfying, in my humble opinion. But anyways, they show this Katie clip package, and Andy's like, you and Jen were close friends. Have you two spoken, since, have you two spoken since? And Jen's like, no, not really. And Andy's like, that's too bad. I mean, you really did have a real friendship. Is it too bad? They knew each other for a year. And Andy's like, do you miss each other's friendship? I like Andy. Do you want to give each other maybe a little kiss? And Jen's like, there's things that are confusing to me, Andy. So I don't know what was real. I thought it was real. There's things that I don't understand with Katie, Jen says, that don't make sense inside of a real friendship. But see, this is where it gets like so convoluted for me, because it just makes you realize you're watching a reality TV show and you ask yourself, what is real about any of this? You know, it's like when you lose the audience's belief in the overall product, you're fucked. At this point, I don't believe anything that anybody's saying, right? And he's like, Katie, do you miss your friendship with Jen? And Katie's like, of course I do. And I will tell you, Katie presents so well. She presents so well. What a beautiful woman. I think she's funny. I think she's smart. I think she, obviously, I think she ran her mouth, which, by the way, a lot of these housewives do. I think Katie was trying to make relationships with publications and whatever the hell you want to call us, bloggers, content creators, podcasters, from the high highs to the low lows. She was trying to make relationships everywhere. And I don't fault her for that at all. I mean, I think every one of these ladies does that. I think she just got lost in the sauce and she got sloppy, right? And I don't think she expected Kiki to actually tell other people, even though there was a third person at this lunch meetup with Kiki and Katie. But she says she feels hung out to dry and that she defended Jen all last year in regards to the Ryan stuff and stuff coming out about the FBI, which the FBI stuff was not touched at all this season. It was like, okay, that's done. And I'm like, is it done? What was the deal made with the FBI? But Katie says, I would have defended you until the end of the earth, Jen. And she goes, I would for you too. And Katie's like, you didn't though, Jen. And Katie says, Jen, I didn't need you to make sense of you and Ryan's situation because I didn't care. And Jen's like, no, that's fine. I needed you to make sense of it. And Katie goes, I kept saying what goes on in your bank account in your bedroom is literally none of my business. I'm going to defend my friend. If she tells me this is true, this is true. And that's what I was looking for. And so that makes sense, right? That's what you're like a loyal friend. And Andy says, Gretchen, it talked about the stupid TikTok video or Instagram video that Gretchen and Jen made, punching the punching bag and had the Asian music in the background, which I don't think they even knew what they were. I think they were just being stupid with a stereotype that is offensive, but it is culturally insensitive towards Asians. But Katie says Katie understands that it wasn't aimed at her. Even Katie, this is where you really like Katie, because Katie realizes it is offensive, but it wasn't aimed at me. But Katie says, but it was not appropriate. And I did say you posted it, but it was the accents that you did and the voices or the noises that you were making, and you blame me for that, Katie says. And Jen goes, I blamed you for what? And Katie says, you said, how dare you think that it's racist? And Jen says, you and I knew each other better than that. How dare you, when we've had so many conversations about you being raised and me raising an adopted child? And Jen says, that's why I said, how dare you? Because Jen's saying, you knew me well enough to know I'm just dumb, she didn't say that, but you know that I'm just dumb and I made an idiotic video, not that I was trying to be racist in any way. And Tamra goes, did you apologize to her after that video was out, Jen? And Katie's like, no, she didn't. And then she goes, Gretchen, you did, but it was a ChatGPT message. I love the chat. I love ChatGPT is becoming like a friend of on these shows, right? Andy goes, wait, hold on. Let me ask you a question. I mean, what were you thinking posting that? And Jen goes, I didn't, obviously. Jen is a really interesting housewife because she has a really piss poor memory. She forgets everything. And there are so many instances where I feel like she's like, I wasn't thinking at all. But Katie's like, you could have even said that you weren't thinking. And Jen goes, well, I didn't think. I didn't think. And I'm sorry to anyone I'm offended with that. And then Andy's like, well, Katie, you said you did get an apology from Gretchen, but it was ChatGPT. And Andy goes, what does that mean? What is this ChatGPT? What is this ChatGPT? And Tamra goes, you can tell when somebody's using ChatGPT. I love Tamra. Tamra knows everything about everything. You can't get one by Tamra because she's done everything. She's been there, done that, used all of these things. I'm sure Tamra has used so many ChatGPT messages in the small time that ChatGPT has been available to us, right? But what I think Katie or Tamra says, you can put it into a chat GPT indicator. And Katie's like, it doesn't even sound like you. It said, warm regards, Gretchen. Do you want me to read it? And Gretchen's like, I can't believe you're saying that. Are you serious? As she's furiously typing into her phone, ChatGPT, what should I say? What should I say? But Gretchen's like, wow. And Heather goes, wait, there's a thing you can put stuff in? That is crazy. Technology. Can Terry use it for some weird procedure on Botched? I can't believe. I love Heather. Like, what is going? I hear there might be flying cars next. But Andy's like, yeah, there's a real thing. Yeah. Andy says, Gretchen, is there anything else you want to say about it? And Gretchen's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I hurt you, and that's the bottom line, because that was not the intent. And Katie takes that. Katie accepts the apology. Which I'm like, okay, so this part is, but like, what about the other? Can't we get some resolution? Like, some resolution that the audience can hang their hat on. And there's none of it. So then we come back from break, and Jenn is talking about Katie always having her ear to the ground, that she always knew things about all of the ladies' like families, right? And they're like, what? And Katie's like, you would say shit to me too, Jenn Pedranti. And Jen's like, yes, absolutely. I'm not saying fake shit, though. I'm not saying fake shit. I had shit for sure. We talked about things, Katie. And Katie's like, oh, so don't make it I was bringing you all the shit. And Jen's like, okay. So you are so hellbent on this roofie story, Katie, at Mastro's. You're going to hold to this. Jenn, you were there. And Katie's like, yeah, you were there. I was looking to my dear friend to back me up. And Jen's like, why? Gretchen wasn't even on the show. And Katie's like, well, exactly. So why would I make that up? Because at the time they went to Mastro's, Gretchen was not invited back to the season, right? And then Andy's like, I just want to reset for everybody. How all of this Naked Wasted came back to life. We don't need to reset. No. But Andy says it's a little confusing even for me. And this is where I feel like Peacock is like using there's an opportunity here to teach kids history. When you have storylines like this, we don't need flashbacks. Just on Peacock say, if you want to watch Naked Wasted, here it is, just put it right there in a box. Just like you would study other sources, like put source material. So when you pull an episode up, here are the source material episodes that you can go back and uncover the majestic mystery yourself. But Andy's like, okay, so Katie and Matt, Jen and Ryan went to dinner at Mastro's. Now, this is the important question I want to know, Andy. Did they split the bill? Who paid? Was somebody Venmoing somebody for the bill? What did you order? But Andy said it happened last year, months before filming started on season 19, before Gretchen was even on. Andy says Katie alleges that Gretchen said that night that she was drugged and went to the hospital. Gretchen and Jenn claim that Gretchen said that she felt like she could have gone to the hospital. And Andy has it right so far. And then Andy's like, we're going to blame Audrey in Delaware with this question. You first said you didn't know much about Naked Wasted, but then you remembered that Gretchen said she was really sick. How do you recall such a specific detail if you first claimed you know nothing about it? And Jen's like, I don't know. I've never seen the episode to this day. Well, that's on you, man. Get a Peacock subscription. Like if you're going to if you're going into battle, do your research. Tamra's seen every damn episode twice and 3 times on Sunday. But Jenn says, all I can tell you is she said she was so sick to me. Gretchen said that she should have gone to the hospital. And Tamra's like, yeah, but the day before you said you've never heard about this. And Andy says, how can you claim to have misspoken about going to the hospital when it's clear that you said it on camera, Gretchen, in the car in New Orleans? And Gretchen's like, and I completely understand why people feel that way. I talked to Gretchen about this at BravoCon. I was like, I don't understand it. You said it on camera. And it also makes sense that you would say that at that dinner. And she swore up and down. I mean, I don't know. If somebody keeps telling you, but I literally was saying, it makes sense if you did. It's all right if you did. Come on, just say it. It's all right if you did. But Andy goes, well, because you said it. And she goes, yeah, and I take full responsibility for that miscommunication. And Tamra goes, ugh, I like the closed captioning says scoffs. Tamra scoffed. Gretchen says, I think sometimes what happens when people are reliving a traumatic experience or getting a lot of new information, or even just hanging out with Tamra, sometimes you say words that you don't intend to say. So, and Shannon's like, when you're blindsided like that, all of us are guilty of misspeaking. And Emily's like, that's not misspeaking. And Katie's like, that is not misspeaking. And then Tamra's doing the timeout sign, like, time out. And Shannon's like, you say things. And Emily says, I called Gretchen right after because it was shocking for me to see that. And Gretchen's like, yeah, that's why I said sometimes you use words, And Emily says, honestly, my perception of what happened is I feel it snowballed because I feel like she's told it over and over and over. And then she got on the show and it gets embellished and it gets changed and it gets added. And Katie goes, I never said the word roofie. Which I feel like we need to bring Kiki Monica out again. Did she say the word roofie? Andy said, Gretchen passed the lie detector test saying she didn't go to the hospital. Well, and Emily's like, well, she passed because she didn't go to the hospital. And also because lie detectors are probably, what do they say? If you hold your butt cheeks or you hold your butthole really tight, you can pass the lie detector test. Emily says, I mean, if Gretchen went to the hospital 15 years ago, we would have seen it. And I think that's what Kiki's point, too, is that she went to, like, Dave Quinn to try to find information if there was some sort of hospital record or something like that. And Andy says, I would think we would have heard about it at the reunion that year. Like, yeah, Andy and the producers would be pissed if that happened and it was not brought up. And Shannon goes, but then Katie takes it a second step and says that Gretchen said she had a toxicology report and said it was positive. So Katie's like, yeah, but it was a lie. So even Katie was then saying there was a toxicology report that Gretchen talked about. And Andy says, I think, Gretchen, you would have brought that. And Gretchen says, I would have been screaming that from the top of the mountaintops. That is a point that does make sense to me. Like, if Gretchen and Tamra are Batman and Joker to each other, if they are like each other's mortal enemies, I feel like if you had one over on Tamra, you would use it. And I'm sorry, but if you came back for season 19, why wouldn't you tell Alex Baskin and the producers, well, I guess it's now time to tell you, I did have a toxicology report because I did. I mean, like that story, right? So it's very confusing to me. Andy says, well, a few of the ladies' significant others were also snagged in the naked, wasted web, and we thought it would be only right for them to give their side of the story. We did extend invitations to Slade, Ryan, and Matt. Slade and Ryan declined our invites. And Tamra's kind of smiling, and Matt Ginella is here. And I feel like this was such a huge mistake for Slade. I mean, listen, it kind of is a no-win situation, I would imagine, for Slade, but I think it would have made the episode better. And I would be really curious to hear them talk. And remember, we even had Slade's text messages blurred out. And I believe Katie said in an after show or some interview that we would see what that other side of the text conversation with Matt Ginella was, right? So Matt Ginella comes out. And by the way, I will say this, Matt Ginella, handsome man, right? And so he comes out, shares some pleasantries with Andy, and Andy says, I'm glad you're on the mend, because I guess Matt had dozens of blood clots in his lungs and his legs, but he's better now. But how scary is that? So Andy goes, obviously there's a big discrepancy between Slade and Matt's account of the phone call that happened between them with the ladies in New Orleans. Matt, you said you had a 43-minute conversation with Slade. Why don't you just start a podcast, you guys, claiming he was directing you to tell Katie to hold the line regarding the naked wasted story? Sorry, it's not funny, but it is funny. Hold the line. And he says, so he wanted you to hold the line that she had been to the hospital or that she had been roofied, or hold which line? And Matt says, well, we go back to Mastro's. I don't know anything about naked wasted. I still can't help but, like, they always show Matt's screenshot of his phone, and I just think it's wild every time, like, Katie's in his phone as my spicy Asian. But Matt says, I don't know anything about anything. This was a story that illustrated to us from them how dangerous Tamra could be. Okay, we're all on the same page there, and what she's capable of. And it went into great detail about this night that led to a drugging and hospital. So, but in terms of holding the line, they're in New Orleans, and I get a text from Slade, 911. Hey, bro, 911. And Gretchen says, he said, hey, bro, I kind of got a 911. Give me a call. That's what he said. And Matt goes, no, I know what it says. Thank you for the detail. Yeah, that's right. I'm Iceman. And Andy goes, oh. And Tamra's smiling like, yeah, you just got attacked by Matt Ginella. So Matt goes, so he texts me, and Andy goes, Matt is ready to rock. And Matt goes, well, this is, I'm being called a liar here, which is why I'm here. I'm here to talk to them. And they didn't show up, Matt says, because all this happened. And Jen goes, wait, Ryan didn't want to show up because his favorite holy jeans weren't ready. No, Ryan didn't want to show up. And Matt says, but Jen's just saying that you're being very rude, Matt. And Matt's like, I'm just trying to tell the story. A lot of this is rude. And Jen's like, it is, Matt. And Matt goes, calling people liars, Matt, is rude. Calling people liars, Jen, is rude. And Jen's like, I'm being called a liar as well. Gretchen's like, I'm being called a liar as well. Everybody on the couch should be, I'm being called a liar as well. And Jen goes, so when people lie, you are held accountable, Jen tells Matt. And you probably don't want to bring up the conversation that you had that night at dinner, and I'm not going to go there either. And Gretchen goes, I'll go there. Gretchen says, because you were the first person that said, the second I met Eddie, he was gay. And Matt's like, huh? And Tamra goes, I don't want to talk to any of them. They're all sitting there. This one's been fucking doing it to him for 15 years, Tamra says. And Gretchen says, you said that. And here's the problem. I think a lot of people make dumb ass jokes, myself included. And, is there a world in which I believe Matt was like, yeah, that guy's gay? I mean, I hate that people even talk that way, but there is a world in which I can believe it. There's also a world in which I can believe, maybe Gretchen is just throwing anything against the wall to make Matt look bad at this point. This is why I wish at some point production had stepped in and just let us know. Just tell us who to believe, you guys. I don't know if we need to get the lie detector guy back out here or what, but it is so infuriating because when nobody's a reliable narrator, then you have no narrative, right? I did tell you, a week ago, last Thursday night, it was at the Margaret Joseph soiree party. I talked to Abe Leashy, Aaron Leashy from Roni's husband, who I've talked to a couple of times before. I was talking to John Barlow and Seth Marks. And then I got into a conversation with Eddie Judge. Now, it's really hard to meet these people, folks. There's no kind of look at me meeting these people. He was very nice. We had a conversation about family. I was talking about that scene with him and Tamra where they kind of got an argument and how real things are. And he said, they are real, He's like, but there's so much stuff that goes with these shows. He was, but by the way, I didn't get a gay straight vibe. He was a nice guy. And there was no, I don't think he knew who the hell I was, but it was, he was just friendly. And we didn't really talk about the show that much. We were talking about other things, but it was a nice conversation. It was a nice guy. And it wasn't this total gay vibe from this guy. I just don't look at people like that. But I will say it's frustrating when you're like, well, I really want to dislike somebody. And I didn't dislike Eddie, but I will, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You get into conversations with these people and they do all of a sudden become people. And sometimes that can be a little frustrating when you're pretty sure you got a lock on them because you've seen them on this show for so many years. I was not brave enough to tell him that bathtub scene put the fear of God into me that I talk about all the time, that Tamra Eddie bathtub scene. Whoo! Put the fear of God into me, folks. Thank God we're past Halloween, but I watch that every Halloween. Anyways, Matt's like, you want to get into it, Gretchen? You want to get into it? And Gretchen's like, yeah, you said the second I met Eddie, I knew he was gay. You were talking shit about him. And then Katie said, you're the one that said it, Gretchen. So now it's not even that this is a lie. It's just that who said it. So they legitimately now are admitting that it was brought up at this dinner that Eddie is gay in some way. So before it was like, that wasn't said. So now it's not made up. It's just who said it. But, and by the way, come on, like I said, there's got to be a lot of people working at Mastro's. There's got to be some Real Housewives of Orange County fan working at Mastro's or eating at Mastro's that's like, did they just say Eddie Judge was gay? But we go to commercial. I got to tell you, when I'm talking it out with you guys, I'm actually liking it more than I was when I watched it. So Andy is trying to make some peace out of this and just like, okay, let's get off the Eddie gay thing. And I always wonder as a gay man, is he always just like cringing of like, what the fuck, you guys? Come on, man. Anyways, he's like, Matt, what's going on? Matt goes, okay, so listen, they were saying like, Slade said Katie talked to Kiki Monique, which by the way, Kiki Monique, I mean, what free advertising Kiki Monique got all season long? It wasn't just Kiki, it was Kiki Monique, right? But Matt says, he said Katie just sealed her own fate. That story was never supposed to come out. And Gretchen goes, no. He said, did Katie talk to Katie Monique? And Matt goes, were you on the call, Gretchen? And Gretchen goes, no, but Slade told me what happened. You're the biggest liar of them all, so stop. And so Matt continues. So I'm like, shit, I need to get a hold of Katie. This was never supposed to come out. Katie told a blogger that's, and that's not what was said. And Andy's like, let him talk, just let him talk. And Matt goes, there's phone logs, there's text messages. And Gretchen's like, you said on the show that Slade called you 20 times in a row. We pulled our phone logs. And then Katie's like, you want to see our phone logs? And so now I'm like, we need an AT&T representative out here. Gretchen says, you said you had a 43-minute call. And Katie's like, you think we're making it up? And Gretchen's like, yes, I do. Because you have been proven to be a liar many times. And Matt goes, do you watch the show? And Gretchen goes, I have. And I have my Verizon phone log. So it's not AT&T, it's Verizon. That production has a thing of it. And then Matt goes, I have AT&T. So now we have Verizon and AT&T fighting, battling it out. Who has better phone logs? And Gretchen goes, Slade called you once. You called him back. The phone call was for 11 minutes. And Matt goes, I'm telling this story. I'm telling the conversation that I had with Slade. And Shannon turns to Gretchen, let him finish this story so he can go. He's shaking right now. And so Matt is shaking right now. And Matt's like, Slade just called. Shit has hit the fan. And did you say this to Kiki? I said no. Okay, well, it got out and Slade is saying that you've got to stick with Gretchen, hold the line, and that never was said. And Andy goes, okay, what did Slade tell you about that conversation, Gretchen, that differs from your point of view? And Gretchen's like, so when Slade called, he was like, now we're hearing that not only are you still talking to bloggers, but now you're talking to bloggers and making up stories about us. And then you said, no, Slade, I swear that did not happen. That did not happen. Then Slade said to you, okay, you as my friend, I'm going to choose to believe you guys because you've never shown us to not be truthful to us. And Matt goes, so you're saying this is what Slade said to me? And Gretchen's like, no, hold on. This is what Slade said to me, how the conversation went. And by the way, Katie, when you came into the room in New Orleans, and Katie goes, I was protecting you. And Gretchen says, no, Katie, I literally looked at you, Katie. And Jen goes, who told you to do that? Who told you to do that? And Matt goes, I called and said, Slade called and said, hold the line. And Gretchen goes, no, he did not say hold the line. Man, that band Toto is just free. Like Toto, the Residuals, Hold the Line is one of my favorite Toto songs. But Matt goes, it's in text, Gretchen. It's in text. And so then we get the text. And it says, Slade, I got the story you on with Gretchen. And Slade writes, she just texts me, but we have not talked yet. And Matt's text says, Gretchen and Katie stayed aligned and poked holes in her timeline. She walked out. And Slade wrote, nice. And then Matt wrote, so did Shannon's. But where's the hold the line? We didn't even get the hold the line text. So now they're all talking over each other, saying each other's manipulating the situation. And Andy says, can I just point out one thing? Kiki Monique. No clarification. He just wants to go, Kiki Monique is a podcaster, not a blogger. And she also has a show on Radio Andy, okay? Andy should wink at the camera. Radio Andy, every day on Sirius, channel 102. And he goes, by the way, if this had happened 15 years ago, like I said, with this naked wasted thing, it would have been huge. Everybody would have known. It would have been a huge deal. We would have all dealt with it. And Gretchen's like, I would have been calling the cops. Gretchen would be in prison with Jen Shah right now. No, Tamra would be in prison with Jen Shah right now. But Tamra goes, it's a lie. She's making up lies about me. And Gretchen says, I would have never come back on a show with somebody that I actually thought did that. And Tamra's like, oh, of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. And Gretchen's like, I never said that. And Matt goes, by the way, where is Slade? Why didn't Slade come? Andy says, it is interesting. He usually doesn't shy away from the camera. And Gretchen says, well, because everyone accuses Slade of wanting to be on camera and wanting to be a housewife and wanting to be involved in everything. And he's like, I don't want to be accused of that. And Katie goes, yeah, but doesn't he want to tell the truth, his truth? And Gretchen's like, he absolutely does, but he can go to do that so many other ways. Which, by the way, I think he did an interview with, or both of them did an interview with Heather McDonald earlier in the season. I'm not sure if they've done other interviews. Maybe, would he have done Carlos King? I don't know. But Gretchen says he doesn't want to be doing any of this. And then Matt goes, he's on his fourth housewife? And then Gretchen goes, no, I'm his third housewife. And Gretchen doesn't even take that as a slam. She goes, no, I'm his third housewife. And Heather goes, let's not say that. Come on, let's not say that. Let's not say that. And Matt goes, that's his mom said that. Slade's mom said that. And Matt says, I have an issue with Slade. He's not here. So let's take it in the octagon. And then Gretchen goes, call Slade and, have an issue. And Jen goes, and Ryan would meet with you whenever, Matt. And then Katie goes, well, why hasn't he reached out to Matt ever since? And Matt goes, I've heard from Ryan how many times? And Jen goes, how many times have you reached out to Ryan? And Katie goes, I'm the one that had to stop filming. And Jen's like, you're not the victim. I'm in the same seat you're in, Katie. I'm in the same position with the same dinner. And Katie goes, so I fucked with your paycheck, Jen, and your livelihood? If I did that to you? And Jen's like, wait, what? And Katie goes, Jen, I had to stop filming. If you would have stuck up for me even the littlest bit, do you think that would have happened? And Jen's like, I fucked with your paycheck? Are you serious? And Jen's like, I fucked with your paycheck? And Katie's like, Jen, yes. And just to clarify, Katie did not get paid for the rest of the season. But Emily's like, that has nothing to do with any of us. That has nothing to do with us, Katie. And Katie's like, and the fact that I called Jen and I would have stayed a line in the slightest, I would have kept filming. And Jen's like, I wanted to be your friend. And Katie's like, yeah, right, but a real friend would have called. And so now they're just all talking over each other, but it's not entertaining like earlier seasons of Roni when they did that, or Salt Lake. And Gina goes, oh, this is crazy right now. This is crazy right now. And Jen goes, Katie, I stuck up for you all the time, and I was always happy to do it. I didn't one time because I told you at coffee, I said, Katie, it's getting messy around you. You got to start taking ownership. You got to figure out if you want to be in this friend group. And Katie's like, I do own things that I needed to own, Jen. And Jen's like, I looked in your face and told you that I'm also a person in our friendship. I also suffered a loss. I lost you, something I believed in, a friendship I loved, a person I loved. So I didn't fuck with your paycheck. Well, listen, I mean, she fucked with, so Katie is saying if Jen had even just stuck by her, she would have remained on the season. Because that could be true in a sense, but also think about it. This is where it gets a little cloudy for me. Every one of those ladies, including Heather Dubrow, did not want to film with Katie. So in this situation, like you gotta, this is what the show didn't do a good job of painting. There seemed to be a pattern of untruths from Katie that was messy for everybody involved, I think, including production. And I don't think they did a good enough job painting that to the audience, because it wasn't just Jen not wanting to film with her. Nobody wanted to film with her until Tamra, and Tamra is very deft at this. This is why she's like Survivor. She's like a deft housewife because she pays attention to that shit. And finally she's like, yeah, I'll film with her. I mean, Tamra pays attention to the motion of the ocean, and she pays attention to the audience, right? That's one thing she's good at. Anyways, that's the end of part 2. Let's get into part 3 immediately. So part two, we let out the tension and we start with some fun stuff about the Amsterdam, where Andy was talking about how much he enjoyed watching the ladies take illicit drugs, which is like, maybe that's how we save OC. We just get everybody on hallucinogens on every episode. You know, like the lie detector guy. It's like, we even make the lie detector guy take mushrooms. Who knows? But Andy's like, I really enjoyed watching it. And like, normally I would really enjoy that. But I think when you're in the middle of a bad season, you're just like, oh, come on. Like, enough of the, like, at least you guys are having a good time. I'm sitting here watching this stone cold sober, right? But Andy's like, Shannon, you thought you heard the Real Housewives of Orange County theme song in Amsterdam? And Shannon's like, it was. Na, 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 na. It was. And Heather's like, we couldn't hear it, but she kept singing it. And Shannon's like, it was, you guys. It was, ask production. And then we get unseen footage. And this is what I was talking about earlier in the episode, saying that some of this unseen footage, I'm like, just throw it into the episode. Because it, like, to me, this was my favorite part. We see unseen footage of Amsterdam and Shannon's talking to production going, that was the music, the Real Housewives music, wasn't it? Am I tripping, you guys? Just tell me it was the music, right? And they're like, yeah, it was the music. So the production said it was the music, but I was like, that to me was more entertaining than what I've seen so far. And then Gina goes, yeah, Shannon thought she asked production, but she asked the plan in the corner. And then we all share a fun laugh. And Tamra goes, I love when Shannon's, when she's on pot, instead of her being a raging alcoholic. No, thank God Tamra didn't say that. But Emma's like, yeah, she needs to eat space cakes daily. Ha ha ha. And Andy's like, it's so funny seeing all the evolution of all you guys over the years. I'm looking at you, Shannon, and Heather, like seeing you wake and bake mushrooms. You're like out there on the tulip fields. I will say that was a part that shocked me too. And that's that's one of the reasons why I give Heather the MVP of the season. Because, listen, if I were to admit that I've ever taken mushrooms, I would say you would know I'm on mushrooms. Like, you would know that I'm on mushrooms. You'd be like, whoa, you're really being weird right now, in a way even weirder than you are on your podcast. But Heather was just like, I am going to do I have been on mushrooms for the last 5 years. Like, I was like, oh shit, she's one of those undercover mushroom people that you don't even know they're on mushrooms. Like, I saw her a couple of times at BravoCon and I almost wanted to be like, are you on mushrooms right now? But Andy loved it, she says. When did that happen? And Heather goes, my kids are older and I've decided to develop a drug problem. No, but she says she's just going to have a little fun. And then they're making fun of Katie for, I don't know. Anyways, we get to the point where Andy says he thought it was very moving seeing you reconcile, Heather, your past with your dad and with the ashes. And that was one of the other things that I kind of really, I've been critical of Heather for many reasons over the course of time, these last 6 years covering the show. I got to tell you, though, it almost makes you wish the season was better to appreciate Heather even more people to appreciate. But I thought it was really revealing. These were things that maybe she's talked about this before and I've just eternal sunshined it from my brain. But I thought it was fascinating hearing about Heather's dad. And hearing that he didn't really kind of give her the love that she potentially needed, right? And I did. I thought that was very moving, but it was wasted on this season in some ways. But Heather says it was cathartic. It felt good. And she says, thank you to Emily, who was there in that scene. They had the best conversation, right, about their parents, their upbringing, their parenting styles, their children. We had so many similarities, Heather said. And then just to be able to sit there and do that, it was amazing. That's another idea, Peacock, man. Like, if you could, think about it. We got to see maybe 2 minutes of that scene, which was probably a 30-minute conversation. I mean, it would be great if they just then you want to see the full conversation? Click on this box on Peacock, right? But Andy says this season ended on a dark and dramatic note, to say the least. I want to start with the emotional final dinner in Amsterdam, where you all confronted Gretchen for her overuse of makeup. No, about her alleged social media activity. This podcast is sponsored by Walden University. Do you ever catch yourself thinking, hey, what if I could go after what I actually want and really make a difference? Well, if you do, you're not alone. And that's exactly why I want to tell you about Walden University. For over 50 years, Walden has helped working adults like you get the W with the knowledge and skills to build the future you want and make a difference where it matters most. With 100 plus degrees and certificates, it has never been easier for students to find a program that matches their goals. And with Walden's Tempo Learning, you're in control. No set weekly deadlines, no rigid schedules, just the flexibility to progress towards your degree at your own pace. Available in select programs. If you want to make a real change, Walden University. Set a course for change. Certified to operate by Chef. And we cut to the scenes where Heather was like, you are intentionally liking hate rhetoric. And Gretchen kind of seeming completely out of it, going, I don't know what I was doing that. So, and Heather's like, you did that. Now, this conversation, horrific that you're liking posts like that too, right? She's saying she didn't, but it's horrific. And if you're the type of person that likes shit like that, it's just, please don't. Please don't. Please don't. But what I find interesting about this, if there's something to take away about this, is that they start talking about behind the scenes. They start talking about how this information has been out there and that Heather has kind of chosen to ignore it in a sense, or that's not my experience. And I thought that was the interesting conversation and another argument for me of like, when things aren't working, break that fourth wall. Let's let the audience know. Let's let us in. Is that like, let's be realistic that these stories have been floating around and that everybody knew about them. Let's talk about the reality of their reality. I don't need everything to fit up into these 4 commercial break boxes. If something's not working, break the form, right? That is thrilling in and of itself to me. But Andy says, your excuse was saying, if I liked something, I probably didn't know what it was about and that you weren't paying attention to what you were liking. What did you mean by that? And Gretchen says, well, listen, I just want to make it clear that there's absolutely no excuse for liking anything that has any sort of offensive, sentiment to it. And I also want to make it very clear to every single one of you here, she says, that I completely denounce anything that it seems homophobic or transphobic or anything like that. I was very confused, she says. I was in shock by what was being brought forward to me in that moment. And Andy says, did you recognize any of the posts that you saw? And Gretchen says, no. And Andy says, you didn't. And Tamra's like, which poster are we talking about? And Tamra's like, you followed that account. And Gretchen goes, I know, you said that I followed that account. But at the end of the day, Gretchen says, I think we've all been guilty of scrolling, mindlessly at night. And I might have seen something and I liked it, not really looking at the content of the post or whatnot. Yeah, I've accidentally liked some things, and then realized I've accidentally liked some things and go, oh shit, I've got to leave that like on there because I don't want that person thinking that all of a sudden I didn't like that thing. I felt bad all of a sudden, but it wasn't anything toxic. I mean, it was probably something about Housewives, which is kind of toxic. There's a lot of things here. And skip ahead if you don't want to hear certain things. But I think where it becomes hazy is that, listen, we've seen things in the past posts of Gretchen supporting Trump, and being very proud of Trump hats and things like this. Now, this administration, one of the platforms they ran on was anti-trans. That was really, really one of the platforms. And so now you have a whole community of people that really they've pretty much tried to obliterate. And that's why I think Heather Dubrow and her family, such an important representation. We all deserve representation in this world. And I have female trans friends and I have male trans friends. And they're amazing people. Some are screwed up people. And guess what? Some of, me, I'm screwed up sometimes. They're just people. And this is my personal feeling. And I just don't believe in throwing hate their way. And I don't want to like anything that is just hate rhetoric. And I try to understand like a lot of sides. And I think a lot of this comes from fear because people don't understand. People don't, and I, like, listen, it is not their job to explain how they feel in their own bodies. It's not their job to explain to us. But if you were to go down that rabbit hole and go, God, how that must be a hard thing to carry, to feel like you're in the wrong body, or that you feel, like these are, and I just think life is hard enough without having people try to, it's not like they have many rights at all, to strip away what rights you do have. And, whether it be the women's movement, or the LGBTQ movement, or the trans movement, for the most part, these are people that want to live their lives. And I don't even like to say, well, like they. It's like, we're us. To me, we're all one. And it doesn't mean I love everybody. God, I dislike so many people. But I just think when you're liking things, and it's things involving, stripping away the rights, or what just seems so hateful. And that's what confuses me. Gretchen seems like a very, very nice person. And that's why I really want to know her take. Like, what is it? And my thing, when you bring God into it, well, then let God handle it. Let God, like, if he is the one that will judge us all, then let him handle it. You don't need to jump in and, but if you do, explain it. Explain it. This is the platform. You've got it right now. Because in my head, unfortunately, a lot of people do feel this way. A lot of people have made trans people, especially, so like you're already like you should be scared of them. And I feel that's really, really, really unfortunate. And sometimes, you don't want to have these shows. Can it hold the weight of these larger conversations? Sometimes they can. Most of the times they can't. But stand behind the courage of your convictions. And, there was a part of me, because I always want to believe the best in people. Or I always be like, okay, well, maybe you did feel this way, but maybe once you've met Heather's family and you've been around people, you realize that, they are just people. I was trying to get something like that. And not just that this was like a cyber security thing, and Tamra and this and that. And listen, that's what's so crazy about this cast, is that there is so much doubt on so many of these people, that once again, it is just hazy. The show doesn't do a good job of telling us, well, what actually did happen. And, maybe don't make, Gretchen spend her own money on cyber sleuths. Maybe the production ponies up some money and gets to the bottom of it, because these are important conversations. And especially when you have a long-running respected housewife like Heather Dubrow, who has trans members of her family that she has talked about many times on this show. And I think they're an excellent representation for their community. Maybe provide the answers, right? Because if Gretchen didn't do these things, you don't want to punish her, And I don't know, it was very frustrating, this element. And I don't know if it frustrated you, or if you were just like, I don't want to see this trash, whatever, but it was frustrating. But Heather says, when you have a good friend, Gretchen, sitting across the table, because Heather, remember, has always considered Gretchen a good friend. Always considered that. And you see even how Heather treats Gretchen. Heather welcomes Gretchen with open arms. But Heather says, when you see a friend sitting across the table from you who's so emotional and so invested in this and really does not want this to be true, I get it that you were shocked, Gretchen, and all that, but that was surprising to me, that the girls had to say, go after Heather. And Gretchen says, I legitimately was like, wait, are they serious? Like, they're actually saying this? Because I knew fundamentally this is not what I believed or who I was, or what I've ever been in my life, Gretchen says. And Heather says, Tamra goes, so you didn't know you were And that's hard, though, because Tamra, not the reliable narrator that can jump in and Tamra has such a grudge against Gretchen that it's coming from such a place of, I want you off this fucking show, that we don't get to the bottom of it through Tamra's detective work. But Tamra's like, so you didn't know you were following all of these hate accounts. And Heather goes, there was just so many. It wasn't just one. One, I would have rolled my eyes, Heather says. there was so many. And this is what was not brought up in the show, which I wish it had been. But Tamra says it was 200 hate accounts. 200 hate accounts. And Gretchen says, no, I've followed. But Tamra says she followed. It gets confusing. Like, this is what I wanted some clarification. Tamra says she unfollowed over 200 accounts when she got back from Amsterdam. And Shannon's like, how do you know? How do you know? And Jen says, but I will tell you, it taught me a lesson. This is like on like transcript. You can't really hear Jen. Jen says, I can tell you it taught me a lesson that I need to pay attention to who I follow. And I was trying to think of that. I followed some accounts because, listen, I was talking to so many creators over the weekend where I was like, I don't see you anymore on Instagram. Are you just not posting anymore? They're like, no, I post. I was like, I don't see you at all. You know, it's like the time you're on Instagram, I can get overwhelmed really quickly now. And so I'll scroll a little bit and then I'll usually go to TikTok. That's usually where I am. But I've had people reach out to me going, you follow this person. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize. Or, okay, there was an account, House and Habit, that I thought was somebody reached out and said you were following, and I read some of their stuff and I was like, oh yeah, I don't agree with this. I don't align with this. So it is one of those things though that I don't sit there and like go over my follows every night. But it is one of those things that you do have to be aware. I have to be more aware, and I'm a nobody, right? But Gretchen says, I gravely apologize if I liked something that was offensive or something like that. But I will say that one post that was brought forward was very upsetting and very suspect to me. And so I don't know why the show, show us the post. But she says it doesn't align with who I am. And Tamara's like, then why would you follow a guy like that? Because that's all he does is post stuff like that. And Gretchen's like, right. And so I took steps to go and look at who I was following because I had over 4,500 accounts or something I was following. And you know what? Gretchen says, maybe that's my mistake that I had been following a lot of accounts that I really didn't know exactly everything that they were posting. I followed a lot of left-wing accounts. I followed a lot of right-wing accounts. Back in 2020, when the election was going on, Gretchen says, that's why I followed a lot of those accounts. So it would be great if Gretchen was like, huge Kamala fan over here. But Andy points out, it's a free country, by the way. You can follow the right-wing accounts. You can follow the left-wing accounts. But Gretchen says it was a good lesson for me to learn. And so I went and rectified. I went and looked at a lot of the accounts that I was following. I do not stand for this, and I'm not going to follow accounts that have that type of rhetoric. I don't know initially why I followed it. Maybe they had a post about God. Maybe they had a post about something. I can't tell you because it's a lot of accounts. And now Tamra's like looking with that pissed off face, like, eh. And he says, by the way, if you're following 4,500 accounts, it stands to reason that you are not seeing what most of these accounts are posting. And Gretchen's like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not seeing. And Heather's like, can I say something to you? I have known you a very long time, Gretchen, 14 years. You have never been anything but kind to me and my family. And Gretchen says, thank you. And Heather said, I never believed that you were that person, but I have people that I've had in my life for a long time that I thought were that way and found out some very disturbing things that go against my family. And Gretchen's like, I understand that. And Heather goes, my children specifically, and everything I believed in, and it has shattered me. I will tell you, God, see, this is fucking Heather Dubrow, MVP. Man, that gets us there, right? Think about that. As a mother, yes, she's wealthy. Yes, she has these big houses. Yes, but still, she is a mother who loves her kids. Telling us something like, this is what I want to hear. This, I feel like I'm watching behind the curtain of something. I'm watching something very personal where she says, I have been shattered by this. You can only imagine how many people she's had to cut out of her life because she loves her kids. And I think mothers and fathers, you can understand that, right? But Heather goes, I will tell you that I've heard over the years rumblings of this kind of rhetoric from you in different communities that I've always chosen to ignore. But when I saw all these posts and saw that you liked them, this is what worries me. When you follow a multitude of hate mongers, I love how Heather says this, hate mongers, what you are going to see in your For You page is hate. Exactly. And that's why this social media, it's so hard. I mean, like, you can really consume some really dangerous shit, then all of a sudden you're down some really hardcore conspiratorial path. And a lot of people cannot discern what is true and what isn't true on these things. But Heather nails it. But Emily's like, by the way, my FYP is just dogs. Just dogs. And then Tamra's like, just animal and dog. Tamra's is like, mine's just the devil. But Heather says, it shows you what you follow. And then Andy goes, mine's guys, housewives, Ryan Bailey, and like Diana Ross, right? Let's see what's on my FYP page right now on the old Instagram. Let's just stop this cold to try to tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, I've got babies. I've got Secret Lives of Morin Wives. I've got Holiday Directions. I've got the band The Cure. I've got the weird twins from The Shining. I've got Best Carne Asada Fries. I've got Lily Allen, David Harbour. I got Bravo Con. I got Bert and Ernie. I've got something that says Big New York Salads. I've got Cookie Monster, Stephen Colbert. I've got Gene Wilder, rest in peace. That's my. I got Jacob Elordi and Frankenstein. I've got Seinfeld. I've got Van Halen. I've got Kris Jenner. I've got some rumor about Sheena Shea. I've got pasta. Okay, so that is my FYP page, was a different sort of hate. But everybody's kind of sharing with their FYP pages. And Heather goes, I have cake decorating and fold. I have things about counting money. But Gretchen says, you got to understand, that's a small percentage of all the accounts I follow. And Tamra goes, the last few days, have you been unliking problematic posts? And Gretchen says, no, I told you guys. And Emily's like, how do you know when she unlikes something? This Tamra, man. Tamra's got to hook up with Lisa Barlow. Their digital cybersecurity squad's got to be insane. Because Tamra's out there doing some digital get down, And Tamra goes, I know that, Emily, because I printed out 2 days ago. Oh, poor Tamra's printer, right? I printed out all these posts that she still had likes on. And all but this one making fun of Dylan Mulvaney, the trans woman that was on this show doing Heather Dubrow's podcast this season, right? And Dylan Mulvaney, remember, caused that big stir because Dylan Mulvaney did some dumb ad for Bud Light, and it stirred up this huge controversy where Kid Rock started blowing away Bud Light cans with his rifle, right? And Heather goes, now, I printed up these 2 days ago, and now this post is the only one that's still liked by you, Gretchen. And Andy's like, well, yeah, shouldn't she have unliked them? I mean, wasn't that the right thing to do? And I think what Tamra's saying is she did that to save her job, in a sense. Maybe that's what Tamra's trying to say. And then Shannon turns to Gretchen and is like, you didn't unlike those? What? And Gretchen's like, yeah, no, I did. And Shannon's like, oh, you unliked. Oh, I think you said liked. Oh, you unliked. And Shannon's like, oh, all right. And so it's a little confusing. Andy's trying to make sense of it. And Emily's like, you got to read that shit before you like it. You got to read that shit. And Heather goes, Gretchen, I appreciate the accountability. And Gretchen says, it was a good lesson for me. I don't subscribe to this. I don't align with this. I hope this really is a lesson. I hope this is, really. And she says, but this post came from somewhere. And Tamra's like, well, what do you mean here? And Jen's like, where did it come from? And I wonder if Jen was like, I'm teeing you up here, Gretchen. I'm teeing you up for your big reveal. And Gretchen's like, you mean the original post? And Jen's like, yeah, where did it come from then? And Gretchen goes, well, that is the question. So when I went home, I hired a cyber analysis company. And this is where it's like, can we have the receipt for the cyber analysis company? Like, do you look it up in the yellow pages? I don't think the yellow pages exist anymore. And Gretchen says, and you said to me, Heather, I need you to prove to me it's not true. So I did. And then there's shocking music. Dung. And Katie's face goes, zoinks. Commercial break. Come back and Gretchen says she spent thousands of dollars getting a cyber analysis done on these posts. And you can see it's a 25-page report. The most egregious post is fabricated, Gretchen says. Fake post. Annie reads, it's important to note at the time of our initial investigation, the most egregious and offensive post did not exist anywhere online. Our system detected it may be a combination of AI and some other image editing software. And then Tamra goes, did we even have AI 3 years ago, Andy? Did we even have AI? And Andy goes, leading us to the conclusion that it is a manufactured post and could not be authenticated. Now, I was thinking, listen, so much of this information gets passed to housewives, and this is where Lisa Barlow kind of comes into play a little bit, is where maybe they're not digging for it, but maybe Tamra's being sent things. And I have been sent fake posts before that looked pretty damn real. And then you're like, no, you can see this one thing right here. And, you know, and so maybe if we're to believe Gretchen, if we're to believe this cybersecurity company, that maybe Tamra got sent a false AI image or some shit and just believed it. I don't know. And Tamra goes, well, the word beep was in there. It's probably a post that Instagram removed. And Gretchen goes, this third-party cyber analysis company, let's do a reality show on this third-party cyber analysis company. But she says, continue to do a lot of research on a lot of accounts that unfortunately were tied to Tamra. And Tamra goes, oh my God. And Gina's like, what does that even mean? And then Tamra goes, I will sue your fucking ass. And Gretchen's like, okay, then sue my ass. And Tamra's like, I have nothing to do with this. And Andy goes, how did you find this post, Tamra? How did you find it? And Tamra's like, it's been cycling around social media for a long time. And I will say there have been posts that have cycled social media in regards to Gretchen for a long time. I have seen that with my own eyes. And Tamra says, so 2 years ago, it came through to Teddy. It was tweeted 2 years ago. And they're like, do you have it on you? And Tamra's like, I don't know. I can look through my phone. Yeah, we should have all of the information. Guys, come prepared. But Gretchen's like, yeah, you're saying 1 year ago and then you're saying 2 years ago. And Tamra's like, I'm not quite sure. I know the post was for like 2022. And Gretchen says, you were the only person you knew about this Twitter feed. And Tamra's like, I wasn't the only person. That's what Tamra thinks. It's like she immediately goes to like the yelly high voice when it's like, just stay at your normal voice. You know, you have nothing to get out, you know, like, come on, stay in your power. But Tamra's like, oh my God. And Gretchen goes, Gina, I really liked you, but it was really frustrating to me because I had somebody call me and said that you and her were plotting and planning it together. And Gina's, yeah, I know. But you saw what you saw, Gretchen. And the reality is Tamra brought it to me, you know? And Andy goes, let me ask you this. Why, after you had made up with her several times, Tamra, did you bring it up at the end? And Tamra goes, when did I bring it up, Andy? And Andy goes, in Amsterdam, Tamra? And Tamra goes, no, I didn't. And Andy goes, you brought it up to her. And Tamra goes, I brought it up the night after her and Slade went after me. Andy goes, I'm saying you had resolved everything with her. And then you two talked about bringing, and then they're all Tamra's yelling and, you know, and they're like, why didn't you tell Gina to squash it? And Tamra's like, oh my God, you're saying here Tamra goes. Here Tamra goes. And Emily goes, but you did bring it up. I understand. I'm saying what doesn't make sense to me is that you had this for a long time, Tamra. And then Tamra just fully flips her lid. It's not like I was sitting on it. Well, that's exactly what it is, though, Tamra. You were sitting on it. This is where everybody loses me on this show. It's like, yes, you were sitting on it. Admit it. It doesn't take away from the power of, well, yeah, you should be concerned about it. I don't care when it's brought up. At least it's brought up. But you were sitting on it. It's like Gretchen. Like, obviously, the posts were liked at some point. Maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe that is not who you actually are. But, like, come on. We're all just lying. But Andy goes, Tamra, you said you knew about it for 2 years. And he goes, no, I found out about it 2 fucking years ago. Which is exactly what Andy said. You said you known about it for 2 years. And Tamra goes, I've never even thought about it until recently. And Gretchen's like, that is such bullshit. And Tamra's like, when you came on the show, I had to think about it. And Gretchen's like, you wanted to weaponize it against me and harm me and hurt me. That's what you did. And Tamra's like, then why didn't I bring it up the first day? And Gina's like, well, I think she brought it up in retaliation. And Tamra's clapping. Why is this changing into you're a homophobic bitch? And then Andy makes a zoinks face. Ugh. And Tamra goes, you are so gross. And Tamra's like I made this up. And Gretchen's like, that's not what I said. There is a Twitter feed that Tamra happened to have on her phone that night. She was like, look at this. Here's this. That Twitter feed, that was the only feed that it was on. It had not been anywhere else but on that Twitter. And Tamra's like, Gretchen, it's all over Reddit. So now Tamra's now said she's gone through two social. It's over Twitter and also Reddit. It's all, and Shannon's like, now it is. And Gretchen's like, yeah, because you started putting it out everywhere. And Tamra's like, no. You're a fucking liar. You spit. And Gretchen's like, how many DMs, how many people have sent me that you are the one that out there putting this out into the press, Tamra, with everybody? Do you know how many people are saying that? And then Tamra's like, yeah, show me the proof. Show me the proof. And Gina's like, can I say one more thing here to Gretchen? Because I want to say this directly to you. In hindsight, was this something that I felt I needed to bring up? Yeah, because it was something that was brought to me, and it was a little disturbing, right? I wish that I had brought it up to you, but not, at the dinner table. Maybe at a lunch table, like a brunch table. I'm very sorry for doing it there. And Gretchen's like, thank you. I appreciate that because I did think you and I had a good enough relationship that if something was bothering you that much, and especially knowing that you knew about it for what I understood was a couple weeks, maybe a month before, I wish that you had brought it to me. And Gina was like, yeah, I do too. I did know for a month. Gretchen says she felt very blindsided and ambushed. And she's like, I'm sorry for that. And he goes, Tamra, what were your intentions of bringing this to Gina in the first place? I'm curious, did you think about bringing it to Heather, who it kind of most personally affected, right? This is where it gets kind of interesting. And Tamra says, well, me and Heather have had conversations in the past about Gretchen's beliefs. And then we go to unseen footage from this season where Tamra is talking to Heather and Tamra says, you yourself said 3 years ago that you had to distance yourself from Gretchen. And Heather goes, I did not say that to you. And Tamra goes, we were sitting after Jen's yoga thing in Newport. And so this was a little piece of footage that we did, which I wish we had seen because it shows that Tamra did try to bring it up to Heather, and Heather was like, stop. Heather says, you did send me the post, Tamra. You sent it to me while we were in the middle of filming. You sent it to me, and I texted you back that I didn't want any part of this. So this is like behind the scenes shit where you're like, this is how this shit is put together. Where Tamra is out there going, hey, look at this. You upset about this? Hey, thinking about your family. And Heather's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this on the show. Isn't that interesting? And then Heather goes, and then you brought it up again, Tamra, in front of everyone at the cake party, which is the unseen footage we just saw. So 2 times we go back to that unseen footage where Tamra's like, you sat down with me and said, I don't want to talk about her because of her political stance and her stance on gay, lesbian. And Heather goes, do not do that. Do not do that. And Shannon goes, that's what Tamra does. Tamra plays dirty, man. Tamra plays dirty, but she's effective, right? But dirty. Heather says, I felt like, Tamra, you were trying to give it to me, to drop it in my lap, to do something with it. And I really didn't want any part of that. And Emily goes, but why did you tell Gina, Tamra? Because I feel like you put her in an awkward position. And Tamra's like, because that's who I filmed with, which is another lie. It's like Heather didn't work, so let's go to Gina. Gina's like, Gina will have to do something with it. And Emily goes, but if this was something, interesting about Gretchen, why not just bring it up yourself, Tamra? And Tamra's like, why am I getting blamed for her liking homophobic stuff? And Andy goes, you're not. And Tamra goes, it's getting gross. And it's like, I'm questioning everybody, Tamra says. This is crazy. And Emily's like, I'm trying to understand, Tamra. And then Tamra goes, I'm filming a reality show, Emily. You might have heard of it. And okay, then let me explain. And Emily's like, don't talk to me condescending. And then Tamra's like, don't talk to me condescending. This is like the verbal repartee is just not what it is on other shows. It's like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. But Emily's like, I'm not being condescending at all. And Tamra's like, yeah, you are. You are. Why did you do this? And Emily's just like, I'm not being I asked you a question. I felt badly for Gina. As her friend, I felt badly. I felt like she was in a very bad spot. And then Tamra goes, why do you have to be an asshole all the time, Emily? And Emily goes, I'm not an asshole. You're an asshole all the time. And then Tamra goes, you're an asshole. And then Emily's like, you're an asshole. And then Tamra's like, that's you. You're always poking at me after all I've ever done is be supportive of you. And Emily's like, oh, here we go again. And then Shannon says something that Tamra's like, oh, yeah, but also, what, she's got a podcast on my network? And then Emily goes, I'm not on your network anymore. And stop bringing that up. And then Tamra goes, by the way, sweetheart, yes, you are. Yes, you are, sweetheart. Yeah. Jax Taylor there. And then Emily's like, don't call me sweetheart. And then Tamra goes, we had to put you back on our network, Emily, because when you got off, your thing tanked. Oh, shit. And Heather's like, don't do that. That's not cool. Everybody's like, ooh, okay. So always my favorite when we fight about podcasts, right? Like, ooh, it is, but that's fucking shitty. This is like, Tamra, when she feels threatened, she will fucking cap you at the knees. But like, that's uncalled for. And like, listen, I think she is back on the 2T's network or however that works, but it's good because how that works with, if I all of a sudden had 5 different shows on top of the 800 episodes I put out a week, it would be on my feed, my RSS feed. So by default, those other shows would do good because So Bad It's Good does pretty good, right? So that's what they're saying with Emily. So when Emily got off that network, of course the numbers are going to dip. Doesn't mean that the numbers wouldn't get better, but yeah, because people you wouldn't be getting automatic downloads from being on the 2T's RSS feed, right? But it was shitty. It's like, what? Like we're at a day now where we're like throwing out insults about podcasts and Shannon's like, let's talk about who's an asshole now. And Tamra goes, I got a text message that they had to put you back on. And Heather goes, that is not nice. And Tamra's like, but then don't call me fucking shit like that. And Emily goes, what? What? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And she's like, you called her an asshole. What? You said it first, Tamra. And Tamra's like, all I've ever been is nice to you. And Emily goes, you treated me like shit for years. And then I forgave you recently. And Tamra's like, you treated me like shit for years too. I mean, listen, Emily and Gina, until recently, have been treated like second-class citizens on this show. Let's be honest here. So we come back from the commercial, and, Tamra, like, makes, like, a snarling face. She's like, "Urgh." And he's like, okay, we sent you all the episodes for the season, but we didn't send you the aftermath of the Amsterdam dinner. We wanted to watch you, have you watch this together as a group for the first time and get your reactions on the other side. So the day after that dinner, we captured a car ride to the airport with Jen, Emily, Gina, Tamra, and Heather. And we're going to take a look at it. So they play that where, remember, it was in the car where Gretchen was not riding with them. And then Emily saying, I went back and I tried to find the post you were talking about. And, I couldn't, it wasn't there. And saying like, listen, we before we accuse somebody and what we just did, we should have had proof, right? And so they watch this scene and Andy goes, so Gretchen, how does it feel seeing that there was remorse? Because people in the van had some remorse about this. Does it make you feel better? And Gretchen's tearing up and she's like, yeah, Shannon says, we all went to our room that night and stayed up looking at stuff. I'm assuming she meant looking at stuff regards to this, not just like TikToks, right? And Shannon's like, you wake up the next day and you go, how did this happen? And Andy says, has anyone since Amsterdam seen the article or credible sources talking about the post that Gretchen has claimed to have liked? And Emily says, no, I searched for it because I was trying to find something legitimate. And Jen says, there's nothing. Emily says, I couldn't find anything. And to me, a screenshot is not clear and convincing evidence. Emily, the lawyer, speaking up, but she says, I want to see the actual post. And Heather says, I do remember seeing that night that there were live posts still up there. that you had liked, that Gretchen had liked. And Tamra's like, there were as of 2 days ago. And then Andy says, Katie, you weren't there. You're seeing all of this for the first time. What's your reaction to this? And Katie's like, thank God I was off the show, right? No, she goes, it's a little heartbreaking, Katie says, because I don't stand on that side of things. I'm very much pro LGBTQIA. And Tamra says, me too. And I think Gretchen says, me too. And Katie points out the accounts that you follow, that would be the opposite. And Andy says, Gretchen, you're crying because, and she's like, because like I said, that's not who I am. It's not who I align with. It's not what I align with. And I just felt like it was such a personal attack on me. And, you know, Tamra and I had made up the day before, and I really thought that we were like maybe having a chance to move forward. But that's the thing. With Tamra, unfortunately, it's gotten to a point where I don't know if genuine friendships can happen with Tamra on this show, because Tamra's in game mode. She's in the traders mode when she gets on this show. And then Tamra goes, just stop right there. Gina, when did I show you that post? And Gina's like, when we were in Orange County. And Gretchen's like, what you're not understanding is that from my point of view, it felt like it was being plotted and planned and brought back memories of even Naked Wasted, to be honest. It would be great if Gretchen was like, it brought back memories of when you roofied me. Or when I saw you on camera going, we're going to get her naked wasted. We're going to make her do something stupid. And you know what, Tamra? That's fucking hard to sit there and think that somebody's plotting and planning something and you have no fucking idea that somebody's doing. That's fucked up. It's fucked up. And then Tamra's like, oh, bring on the tears, sweetheart. And Shannon's like, you know, this is life-changing. This is life-destroying. And Tamra goes, yeah, oh yeah, drugging somebody is life-destroying too. I have businesses. Like, so she's saying, bringing up like the threat that I drugged somebody could destroy my business. And Gretchen's like, yeah, the stuff that you were out there disseminating and telling people. And she goes, I am not disseminating that to many people. Just stupid Gina. But she goes, there's a whole thread that's been out there the whole time. Same fight. And they're all fighting over, and then others all talking over anybody. And Emily's like, they're posting them currently because they got them recently. And Tamara's like, oh, so these accounts got them from me. And Emily's like, I didn't say that, podcast king. And Tamara's like, show me, show me, show me, show me. You are so full of shit. You are so full of shit. You are so... And everybody just has Zoiks wide open mouths as we go to break. We come back and Emily says, there are accounts out there that are very pro Tamra. And those are the accounts that are posting those screenshots. And Tamra's like, there's accounts that are pro everybody. There's accounts that hate me. And Andy goes, this digital thing, Bravo needs its own digital forensics department at this point. And Andy goes, just so you know, like, by the way, Emily and Tamra are just sniping at each other at this point. And Andy goes, you should flip through this, Tamra, because there are linking accounts that they say you are somehow involved with. And Gretchen's like, yeah, there's all these little accounts. The only one that following these accounts are Tamra. And Tamra's like, I am not spreading anything. But it does speak to something where it's like, this is where the parasocial relationship we got to chill with. It's like, I know it's like fun to love these shows. And, you know, it's like you don't want to do the dirty work for any housewife. Good housewife, bad housewife. You know, it's like, I don't want another Kiki Monique season. I don't want another thing where, you know, it's like I always joke about, oh, my dream would be like they're fighting over my show. No, that's actually genuinely would be a nightmare. I usually just make fart noises into a microphone. You know, like, it's like, no, I want to see what relationship these ladies have. I don't want the digital world that is posting about housewives to come into play. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But Tamra is even getting saucy with Andy. I am not spreading anything. This is Slade's bullshit. And Gretchen's like, your criminal network that you're reaching out to everybody. And she's like, I don't have a criminal network. I have the 2 T's and a pod network. And I think Katie goes, oh my goodness. And Gretchen's like, sure. Do you ever not talk to bloggers? Do you never leak any information on this show? And Tamra's like, what are you talking about? I have never in my life. And Gina makes a face like, ooh. And then Andy goes, well, about a week after the Amsterdam trip ended, we picked cameras back up to see how everyone was processing. And remember, some of these ladies, Katie goes, oh, wow. But remember, this is where Tamra is not aware about the picking back up cameras. And he goes, I'm going to show you now the interaction that happened between Jen, Gina, and Shannon at Jen's house as her cameras went down. And Shannon and Gina look really nervous right away. And he goes, keep in mind, this was shot on May 9th, 2025, before any trailers or episodes had aired. Watch this. And we see that final pickup scene. After production wraps, some of the women received DMs from a person with information about the show. This was like one of the worst, weirdly acted, like pickup back of cameras, like, oh my God. And remember, it's like the voice where like, oh, Tamra reaches out to me all the time. And some people said a couple of people said it sounded like me. A lot of people said it sounded like Jeff Lewis. And by the way, I do believe production knows exactly who this person is. And this is what it's like, production, help the audience out, brother. Come on. Help the audience out. Let us know. Because they have to know, because they wouldn't just put on some Joe Schmo. They have to be aware of who this person is, right? So Gina is reading the text. I know you don't know who I am. I'm just someone who wants to expose the truth. Part of the reason why I wanted to reach out is because Tamra has been leaking details about the entire season throughout filming to bloggers and fan pages. If you want to test knowledge, feel free. I can prove everything. I don't have a DM relationship with Tamra at all. So, I know I'm clear, but it is a lot of information that I would wonder how this person would get. It was so much so that I was like, is this Teddy Mellencamp? Is Teddy Mellencamp behind this? Is this the voice of the person? Like, is it Teddy Mellencamp or is it somebody on production? Like, part of me, it's like, I could believe that Tamra told one person or two people, but a series of bloggers and fan pages. I will say, though, there have been cases where I've heard there's been certain people, I think maybe on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Bolognese, that was really skirting a very fine line at certain points during their seasons with bloggers. So remember, they get this person on the phone, but I love the little box showing the reaction. And Katie Janelle is like, what? Because this is what Katie's also accused of doing, Katie's like, this is what I was doing. Why did I get this scene? And then remember the voice kind of, it's like the voice, do you want to play a game? She does do a lot of talking, mainly on Instagram. And it's always a play-by-play during filming. And they're like, give us a couple things you know. Oh, so I know that when she fake quit after the New Orleans trip, and when she did return, she filmed with Heather at some restaurant. I think it was Costa Mesa. She told this group of people that Katie last filmed with the group on March 20th. And then in the last scene was like a sit down with Tamra. So this guy or this girl is right about everything. I think it was something to do with Gretchen, allegedly, about Katie, and then Katie reported back to Tamra. So this person is right about everything. And Jen's like, Tamra's getting away with leaking info, yet holding Katie accountable for doing the exact same thing. And Tamra's box reaction is like, oh my God. She got into an altercation with Gretchen and I got slayed. And we see all the clips of these things actually happening. And she took the high road and walked away. On April 20th, she told my friend she told my friend that you and she were plotting against Gretchen. To bring up the transphobic and homophobic stuff. And you guys both had hoped that it would turn everyone against her. And Gina's like, that's insane. Because Gina, remember, was like, I didn't hope it turned everyone, she's like, what? Gina's like, she's clearly trying to make this like my fault. So Gina's like now thinking like Tamra's trying to throw this all on her. When I have nothing to do with this. Come on. That's insane. I'm not here to do Tamra's dirty work. I'm not your fucking henchman. I'm not your minion. And now you piss me off. So this was the final scene of the season finale, remember? So we pick back up and Tamra's like, who's this guy? And Shannon's like, the voice. I don't know. And Andy's like, this is someone who contacted who? And they said, all of us. And Andy goes, when you all agree to do the show, you all agree to keep everything that you shoot confidential. So how do you explain how this person knows this? And Tamra's immediately defensive. It is not me, Andy. This is bullshit. This is an ambush. And Gretchen's like, oh, like you did to me? And Jen goes, oh, Tamra, you don't talk to bloggers. You don't leak information. And Tamra goes, I don't give away storyline. No, I don't. And Jen's like, you talk to bloggers? I have been on this show forever. There's a difference between saying hi and bye to bloggers. Yes, you're great. Well, that's, and I do agree with Tamra. There is a difference. Like you can, a housewife will like a post or like, haha, but there's a difference, right? That's different than giving away storyline. And Katie's like, that's true. And Tamra's like, I have been on this show for 15 years. We've never had this problem until you came back, Gretchers. And they're like, this has Slade's name written all over it. And then there's a weird shot of Andy's face, which you can tell he's just like, oh, God, I wish I was at the Salt Lake City reunion. Oh, I just miss my kids. I miss my family. Oh, he just looks like so checked out. He's like, And Shannon goes, this guy said you've been doing it for years. And Tamra goes, well, show your face, buddy. Show the proof. Show the proof. And Tamra's like, and then when people come after you, they go out on social media and support you. And they do it because you supply them with storyline ahead of time. You keep them in the know, and that's how they help you. And Tamra's just going, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And Tamra's like, this guy's Slade's friend. And Gretchen's like, it's not Slade. And Gretchen's like, Slade doesn't have friends. And Andy's like, yeah, but those scenes, she wasn't in those scenes. She wouldn't know. She wasn't in those scenes, Tamra. And Tamra's like, show me the proof. Show me my writing. And Jen's like, on that call, he said something that had happened in Amsterdam was you were upset that you didn't get asked to go to the upfronts. And we go back to the unseen footage. Sunday, she told my friend that Shannon, you were mad because she didn't get invited to the upfronts on Monday. And you called upper management at Bravo. You threw a fit because you thought you should go. And, it's like, so this this turns out to be true. We didn't see it in the actual episode, but Tamra in the reunion goes, but we all knew that. And Shannon goes, that was the clincher. I had just gotten back from Paris the day before from that trip. How's this guy going to know that? And she's like, the call is coming from inside the house. And we flash back to that unseen footage in Amsterdam where Shannon's in a van with all the ladies going, did every single person from the cast get invited to the upfronts but me? Now, the upfronts, you guys, you probably already know this, but if you don't, it's where they take all the advertisers and they sell like, look, we got all these great content coming out for you to put your commercials on. And they wine and dine them and they give them a song and dance. And usually they'll put the stars of the network out and they'll come out on stage or whatnot. Like it's like the big show. And I'm sure Shannon's been to many upfronts before. And then Shannon going, I did call Bravo today, and I said, I just want to know, is there a reason that I wasn't asked to? And Tamara's like, wait, you really asked that? And she's like, yeah, I really did. And they said, we love you, Shannon. We love you. And then Tamra back in the reunion goes, I didn't do this. And Jen goes, but this is where we now lie because we don't know. Do you do this? Do you do this? And he goes, why did you guys find this person to be credible on the call? And they're like, yeah, because he knew things. And Tamra shouts again, do you think I'm the only person on this cast? And Gina goes, well, it's someone here. And that's where I feel like production should have just locked all the doors, like nobody is leaving until we find out who it is. And then Katie goes, it's not me. I wasn't. And Gina's like, yeah, you're exonerated because you weren't even there. And Heather's like, you are clean on this one, Katie. Emily goes, it's very suspect to me that he knew about a specific setup between these two people about Gretchen and the screenshots. The only people that knew about that are the people sitting in this room. And I know it wasn't her, pointing at Gina. And Gina's like, hearing the person say, and Gina's plotting against Gretchen, it made me feel like you're doing this, Tamra. And you're trying to now pass that buck to me. And Tamra's like, why would I do that? And Gretchen goes, that same person had texted me saying Tamra's plotting and planning this thing against you for a long time. And by the way, I feel like everybody needs to put their phones out and let's get all the correspondence. And Andy says, but she didn't know you were coming back on the show. And Gretchen goes, no, he said that it was the last 2 weeks. He said, by the way, it's hard to fuck because Tamra keeps fucking yelling over him. So it's hard to fucking make heads or tails. And Tamra's like, Slade is working overtime. And then Gretchen's like, you're such a fucking liar, Camille. You're just mad because you got caught. That's why. And Tamra's like, no, I'm not mad. I got caught. I'm mad because it's a lie. Guess what? Guess what? And then Andy goes, okay, I want to hear from Shannon. And Shannon's like, Gina and Jen, you were on the call. Do you also remember that he said when those crank calls were happening where it says Kelly Dodd, you said it happened? And so we flash back to unseen footage where Jen says, what was the prank call? And Shannon goes, I got prank called and I didn't tell one person about it. So some prank call involving Kelly Dodd. It was unseen footage. And Shannon in the reunion goes, you thought it would be funny. And you gave Heather's number and my number. And I remember getting the prank call. And Heather's like, oh, I did get the call. And Shannon goes, and they recorded it. And Tamra's like, I have never given on my children's life. I have never done this. This is fucked up. She's pointing to Andy Cohen. And it's so confusing, you guys. We come back. Tamra saying this only started happening when Gretchen and Slade came back. And remember, Gretchen came on as a friend up. Gina goes, I don't play this game, this whole thing, and Jen's like, you said you felt like you were set up by Tamra. And Gina's like, you know what? That's what I'm saying. I did. I believe this because the only people who knew that we knew about the post about Gretchen are you. And so, and he's like, so what's your response to her? And Tamra's like, no, that is bullshit. And Gina's like, no, I mean, with regards to our season. With regards to our season, Tamra. And Andy goes, Tamra, she's saying that it's like the Tamra whisper. Tamra, she's saying that she feels like set up by you. What is your response to her? And Gretchen's like, she should feel set up by Slade. And Emily goes, no one knew that this whole thing about accusing Gretchen between the two of you. And if it's not Gina, the ones who telling them, then it has to be you. And now they're all shouting over each other. And she's like, it got twisted and implied. I don't want you people. And Tamra's like, I'm telling you, Emily, if you ever want to podcast in this town again. And then Gretchen's like, are you kidding me? I was like, Gina's setting me up. And then Tamra goes, 15 fucking years I've been on this show. And I've never had this problem. And guess what? And then she says, I think the see you next Tuesday word. And then this bleep comes back. And everybody's like, oh, zoinks, use the see you next Tuesday word. Now all of a sudden, Slade's pulling his magic. Slade's pulling his Liberace magic. And Andy goes, I know, but Slade wouldn't have known the information because Gretchen didn't know it. And Gretchen's like, yeah, I didn't even know. I was ambushed with that. And I mean, that is true. How they weren't there. Like, how would he have known all of these dates if Gretchen didn't even know these dates? And Tamra's like, this is bullshit. Bullshit. And Shannon goes, on the finale night, we went out to dinner afterwards. You had a very smug look on your face, Tamra. It could just be botched surgery. I don't know. And then Shannon goes, it looked orgasmic, your face. Shannon goes, you look like I got it, I won. And all of us commented on it, Tamra. We did. We felt uncomfortable. And Gina's like, this is what I keep going back to between the two of you guys, though. And Andy goes, I think that the thing that I would like to know from Tamra before I end this, thank God, is to me, you and Gina are good buddies. And so I actually think this kind of comes down between the two of you. Because I know things have been trouble with Jen, and we know where you've been with Shannon. So how do you two move on from this, Tamra and Gina? Because she's saying she felt set up by you, Tamra, in the situation. And Tamra goes, I feel set up by this whole situation. So Gina, I didn't do that. On my children's life, I did not do that. And then he goes, but what I'm saying is, did this person show you any proof that this stuff came from Tamra? And Tamra's like, yeah, right. Where's the proof? And Gina's like, they just gave us the storyline. So we need a little bit more than that, though, right? It's just like what we were talking about with Gretchen. And Gina goes, from the content of our season, they gave it all. And Tamra's like, I understand that, doofus. All of us know. And Tamra's like, why don't we get this person out here and ask him? And, I would love for him to come out. Let's figure this out. And Gina goes, this doesn't even have to do with Gretchen, right? This has to do for between you and I, Gina's telling Tamra. Like, if you are telling anybody about anything that's happening here, it's getting fucking out. It's becoming a problem, Tamra. So that's what, I don't feel like you did this to hurt. And Tamra's like, it sounds like you're making it sound like I'm reaching out to bloggers. And they're like, yeah, that's what they're saying, Tamra. That's what they're saying. And Tamra's like, I am telling you, I am not. And Andy goes, well, this is what you were all accusing Katie of. And she goes, like, yeah, I gave Katie shit a while. But yeah, this is what we're saying is if this is happening, it's not okay. And Tamra's like, yeah, it is not okay. And Jen goes, the same accountability that happens for Katie should be taken across the board. And Andy goes, Tamra, do you think someone close to you is betraying you? Oh, it could be Eddie Judge. But Tamra goes, I don't know. I don't know. But I'm telling you, Andy, I'm not reaching out to bloggers. I've been on this show for 15 years. I don't. And then she's like, I've been 50 years. She's starting to we always pivot in arguments, right? If something's not working, you go to tears, you go to this. And Andy goes, yes, I know, Tamra, nothing's ever leaked. And Tamra goes, it's just a coincidence that now he's on the show and that they've been attacking me for so long. And Andy goes, he wouldn't have known. He wouldn't have known. And Shannon goes, yeah, Tamra, when you were on Watch What Happens Live, you were like, this is how I keep my job. And Tamra's like, that's not what I said. Shut up, Shannon. And Heather goes, this is a moment for everyone to say, it is enough. You know what? I joined the show when my youngest kid was 9 months old. He's turning 15. You've been on this show longer than me, Tamra. You started before me. Things have changed. It has got to stop. No careers, no kids, no bloggers. No talking about my stand-up career. This is about our friendship. This is about conflict and resolution between us. And that's all it's ever been and all it ever should be. And anyone that arrives in this group and thinks they're playing a game of Survivor is sadly mistaken. And I think everyone needs to agree once and for all, this has got to stop. Beautiful. This is why MVP Heather Dubrow right there. And Andy's like, yeah, all right. Good work, Heather. Good work. Emily says it's hard enough to already be in this group and to be in this dynamic and to navigate all this and share our lives, our families, to be authentic, to talk. And then Emily goes, it's hard for me to share about Luke. Really? It seems like it was pretty easy. No, I'm just joking. It's hard for me to talk. It's hard for all of us, Emily says. We're sharing authentic things about our lives. But it is so much harder when we have to navigate outside people and the outside people aren't our friends. That's it. That's why I want, I don't know what happened in this case, but I want I don't want us to be storyline. I don't want us to try to be storyline. I want us to be snarky about the show, maybe to make points about the show, maybe to make our funny thing, but let's not try to be involved in the show, right? But Emily's like, let's not deal with those outside people without bringing more people into this group. But she's right. We're already dealing with this. Why bring other people into this? So now we're in our final moments, and Shannon says kind of a little bit of an apology to Katie, saying you're nothing like Alexis Bellino. And Katie's like, thank you, Shannon. And Andy's like, Katie. And Katie's like, I think I said something about Jen in a confessional about just having a strong distaste for her. And I regret that. So now we're all going around saying, and they're like, Heather's turn. And Heather goes, it's not something I regret saying, but I wish I would have been more vocal about the photo. The former fatty photo. We could have done a whole episode on that. And Jen goes, thank you. Thank you. Emily says, I can't think of anything. That's kind of like this season. I don't know. I got nothing. Other than I'll just go back to Katie to last year. And I wish I would have formed the question better, Emily says, as opposed to making it about your children, because that wasn't my intent. I wouldn't want to do that. So I wish I had said it in a better, more articulate way. And talking about last year's reunion, right? Gina says, I wasn't this season, but obviously I regret not talking about Travis's large balls more. No, she goes, about having asked you, Heather, what you were wearing that day. Oh, I mean, Katie, what you were wearing that day on the bicycle. I do. This season, I obviously deeply regret saying that I thought you weren't funny, Heather. And I do think you're funny. Sometimes. Tamra says, sharing the picture of Jen, former fatty photo. And then Jen goes, 2 for me, that I gave Shannon, the feeling that I didn't appreciate the bridal party. Oh, sweetie, that's nothing. And then the video that was hurtful for Katie. Andy says, Katie and Jen, do you see a path forward? And Katie goes, I hope so. I hope so. Shannon goes, we have a conversation we need to have. Because when I was in a trailer, I got a call that you were with Nicole just yesterday. And Nicole's my friend. Nicole Boyer. Not that she can't be yours, Katie, but you went right up to her and Nicole's like, you said, I'm going to ask you something and tell me the truth. Was Ryan involved with Matt's booking? And Nicole said, Jen, she was fishing. And Katie goes, no, I said, was he involved? And we flash back to this scene where Jen is being told by Ryan. So already Katie's fishing for more information. So already another example of Katie doing this. Katie goes, my friend Laylee hosted an event and she was a guest and I was invited by my friend Laylee, who owns the event space. And Jen goes, yeah, but you then went fishing out there about me. And this is where, Katie, I had nothing but love, 100% love for you. You can't do this stuff in real friendships. You can't go to my friends and say, I haven't heard. And Katie's like, I haven't heard from you, Jen. And Jen's like, but you're sitting here today saying, I hope there's a path. I'm in my trailer eating lunch. Nicole says, I'm driving Matt to prison today. You came right up that she doesn't. Anyway, so now they're like yelling over each other. And Andy's like, Matt's the bookie that Ryan worked with? He is. And Katie goes, she said she hadn't talked to you in weeks and you submitted her for casting. And Jen goes, no, she said you told her, Katie, that they want her on the show and that you will submit her for casting. And Katie says, no, she said that you, Jen, God, it's so annoying. Who submitted who for casting? Katie goes, I just met her the other night. And Jen goes, I'm sorry, it's the phone call I just got. I'm sorry, it's the phone call I just got. And Katie goes, you can have a call with Laylee and you can hear the real story. And Kiki Monique was there. No. But Jen goes, I don't need to do that. I trust Nicole. So the point is, I don't trust you. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I almost believe Jen in this moment of like, it does seem like Katie gets in these situations where she's out there collecting and gathering. And then Andy goes, for our final toast today this year, we're doing hurricanes for New Orleans. I mean, this is so like, who cares? It is so like, womp, womp. And then everybody's like taking pictures with Andy and everybody just looks like whatever. And then backstage, like Shannon's ripping off her Spanx and like some tan thing. Like it looks like she's ripping off her skin. I was like, I don't need to see this. And then everybody's like, are you going to go to dinner? And they're like, I'll go to dinner if Tamra's not there. And so they're making plans for dinner. And then in the trailer, Tamra is crying about Gretchen and Slade, and Katie's sitting next to Tamra. And Tamra's saying Gretchen and Slade are dangerous. And Katie's like, yeah, they are dangerous. They are dangerous. And Gina's still in the thing trying to solve the mystery. Like, there's only thing that hurt me and Tamra knew. It's got to be one of us. Maybe it's me. I don't know. We need the lie detector guy again. But Emily goes, if it's not you, Gina, it doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to figure it out who the guilty party is. That's it. We survived, you guys. Mark Say from season 19 of Real Housewives of Orange County. I don't know. What a mess. What a mess. And not even a fun mess, because messes can be fun, right? But we survived. We lived to recap another day. And I'm sure I'll have more thoughts about this as we go on. I'm so curious about your thoughts, because overall, I just thought, who cares? What are we doing with our lives, man? And I'm very curious. We should hear rumblings about casting in the next couple of weeks. If Vicki's a lock, then that means Tamra's a lock. But, it's a real guessing game on who the rest of this cast is going to be. I don't think they will fully shake this cast up because I think they want to get season 20 out of the way, but we will be covering it. So have a great start to your weekend. Remember, Saturday, Bop-a-doo, Bop-a-dee-dee-dee, special Saturday episode of Southern Charm Recap, which will be fun to talk about. And that's it, you guys. Yeah, and also just, as my dad always says, don't hate, man. Don't fucking like hate posts. Don't try to put hate out there. Just don't. Love. Love. Is that Teresa? Love. Okay, bye, guys.